changes or additions?
There will be 2 additions after the public meeting.
Okay. And so now we're going to discuss the 10-year town plan. Todd, do you want to open the discussion?
Sure, we've had 2 town plan hearings, select board and trustees, and I think the focus tonight is the changes. The select board made some changes and the trustees also had a couple changes. And since that time, I've also updated the town plan to speak to updated facts for the Morristown Corners Water Corp and the Morristown Cemetery Association. If anyone hasn't seen that, feel free to grab one and pass it around. You got one? No, that's just the pages, the changes. So there are 5 pages of changes. Select board has in their packet, pages 12, 19, 26, and 51. I'm happy to speak to those, and or you want me to go through them, Bob?
That'd be great. Yeah, go through them.
All right, so page 12, I updated some language on the truck climbing language for Shutesville Hill for Jimmy Brewster. On page 19, we added a sentence about the adequacy of the village offices on Elmore Street for the future for the next 10 years. On page 26, these are Morristown Corners Water Corp changes. Adding a little more information on their system. And on page 51, we're talking about there's revised language regarding mobile home parks. That should be it. So not a lot on the docket, so to speak. And again, these are the changes made since the last select board meeting. Additional changes to the plan.
Is there any comments or questions about those items, those pages?
I have comments, but I can do it in whatever time will be allotted.
So Todd, I was wondering if you could address, like, the town plan is something we're required to do if we want downtown designation and funding to go along with that. What's the responsibility from our town plan and the state? Does the state look at this for grants and for funding?
You're not required to
Who's
have,
responsible?
you're not required to have a town plan. You're required to have a town plan if you want to have zoning. So we need a town plan. You don't need a town plan for state purposes, and your town plan can pretty much say what you want to do until you want to enter state programs. For example, if you want to be part of the downtown designation program, the state has certain control over parts of your town plan. You're seeing that tonight with the trailer park language, for example. We have to be accepting of trailer parks if we want to have a designated downtown. That's one of the things the state does require. There's no requirement for us to be a designated downtown. We're choosing to do so. But when you choose to try to get state money or state programs, the state obviously wants some control over what your plan says, and that's kind of the give and take you're seeing with that change tonight. Does that help?
Yes, thank
And
you.
the town plan really acts as, when you look at the back of the town plan, and I had a conversation with a member of the select board earlier, there's the objectives in the back of the town plan, all the things that are underlined and italicized, so they're really found in the last 4 or 5 pages of the plan. That's really a punch list. That's going to be the planning council's to-do list for the next handful of years, at least 2 to 3 years, on open items we want to see accomplished and things they'll work towards. So it really sets the agenda for the planning realm of the of town government. Again, this is a planning document. It's not a select board document. The select board has to approve it. But this came through years of meeting with the planning council, and then the to-do list is basically what they're going to do the next 2 to 3 years based on what's in the plan, what's in that implementation chapter.
And also, things can happen in town that are not in this town plan.
Of course. Town plan's a living document. This is version 22, I think. We've done a lot of changes. And sometimes, like during the last town plan process, we updated the town plan for the Green Mountain Arena Herchak property. So that town plan lived precisely 2 years, and we did a new town plan. The previous town plan was 2013, and we did a new town plan in 2015. That's the last time we've done the town plan. So no one has a crystal ball. We can't predict the future. We may tackle something 2 years from now, another pandemic, God help us all, that requires town plan changes. We can update the town plan again.
Right. Maybe open that curtain, Eric, behind you.
Yep.
Okay, I have another question, but it's gone. I'll come back to it.
No problem.
Yeah, that's the questions I've gotten a lot. That's why I brought it up, is a lot of people feel like, or think that if it's in that town plan, we've got to do it. And And if it's not in the town plan, we can't do it, and that's just not the case.
That's not the case, no.
It's just, it's like guidance.
Yeah, it's a living document, you can always, it could be changed later, and I think, looking at the to-do list, so to speak, that punch list of the implementation chapter for the 2015 plan, I think we did about 70% of it, maybe 80% of it, we actually accomplished, and there's certain things that we decided not to do because they made sense at the time when we wrote it, but by the time we got to do it, the world had changed. That happens.
And sometimes it takes more than 10 years for something to happen too.
Yeah, for example, there's language in here about burying the power lines in downtown Morrisville. The funding to do that is going to take more than 10 years to amortize. So talk about the funding now. You might be burying the power lines the next time the downtown's paved in 30 years from now, but it's going to start at some point, and that start is here.
Right.
So some
Well,
of
we
the things
did
that
one
they're-
side of the street, in Portland Street, but we haven't done the other side.
Exactly. So some of the things in the plan are much longer than a 10-year time frame. It's a 30-year time frame horizon or longer sometimes.
There was controversy last time about right-of-way between Elmore Street and Copley Avenue. Has that been removed?
No, that you guys did not make any changes to that, nor did the trustees at the last meeting.
Okay.
There is in regards to that, there's a desire to have a secondary access to the school, and that's the cheapest, easiest way to do it is between those two properties. It's flat, it's short, it's not a big hill like the other two access points, like a Trips Corner. It's not a corner either. So that's still in there.
I'm wondering if that can be revised? Is it too late to
You can
revise
make any,
that?
you can make any revisions you want, but will require more hearings. So it's every time we have more hearings, you have to advertise again, so it's a more time and a bigger bill, and it's longer to do your downtown designation. So we can make more changes, but you start the process again every time we make changes.
Right. For myself, I know I've gotten a lot of feedback about it, and I'd like to see that come out of the language, because I think there wasn't enough notification, for whatever reason, from the town to the people that live in that area. I've talked to several people, and I think that language should be taken out. I mean, it doesn't have to be in there, you know, there's no reason for the town plan to have that in there, because like what you said, that property that school actually owns, up by the Trips, by actually the Ren proper, Monty and Tracy's place, they own that, the school owns that, it's not a right of way, they own 25 feet, they would have to get another 25 feet if they wanted a two-way, but right now they could have it be a one-way in and not do anything, they don't have to acquire property or anything to have that second access. It could be now for a fire department if they wanted to open it up, you know, whatever.
Absolutely.
That's my opinion. I just think there wasn't enough where there was notification or warning or advance notice. And Kathy, I know Kelly, you guys feel that way. I felt that way too. I didn't even know that was in there. You know, and I'm the chair of the board, and I look at this stuff all the time, but I never caught that to the last meeting about that. And I understand why Kathy feels the way she does about that property. And that's my opinion. I think that should come out.
Yeah, if the majority of the board wants to take it out, you take it out. The easy thing about taking it out is, if you take something out, you're not creating another hearing. You're creating another hearing if you're changing language, you're adding things in.
That's what I
You can
thought.
leave things on the cutting room floor, as
That's
I would
what I
like to say, without requiring more hearings.
And it also doesn't mean that if sometime in the future that could happen, it doesn't have to be in there.
Doesn't have to be in
for that
there.
happen.
The only reason, the reason you put things in the town plan, in many cases, you can chase grants for them once in the plan. When you chase a grant, you can say, look, our community really supports this. It's on page 67 of the town
Right.
plan.
Right.
If it's not there, it's not the end of the world.
Right. I just know if I was Kathy and Scott, I'd be like, what? What are you talking
Can I
about?
speak?
Go ahead, Kathy.
So, yeah, I was totally shocked to see that, because I had not heard anything about that. When I came to the last meeting and spoke with you and Todd about that, Todd said that the school wanted it. So that sent me on a wild goose chase. So I went to a school board meeting. They said that they didn't ask for it. So then Tommy Gardner did a whole thing in the paper and asked numerous people, and nobody remembers anything.
Right.
So how can it be warned legally? How would I know that this was coming if nobody remembers it? How is this legal? How is this legal to be able to put that in without letting any of the adjoining landowners or even the landowner knowing about it? I just, that is,
I'm not,
when I read that article, it looked horrible, I think, for us as town people, because nobody knew anything.
Right.
No, everybody's looking, well, I don't know, I don't remember who did it. No, I know it was mentioned sometime years ago, but.
Well, I'm not doubting that it wasn't legally warned. I mean, these things are put in planning council meetings, and it may have very well, I missed it, and obviously you did, a lot of people did.
Well, I've read every zoning minute that there is, or meetings that you have. There's so many boards, I can't tell which. But they only go back for the last year. And at the bottom, it just says, majority of the time, town plan. It doesn't say what they're working on that night for the town plan.
Right,
It just says
What
town
detail?
plan. Yeah,
Right.
there's nothing.
right. And I only attended a couple of those meetings at the golf course, so I'm, you know.
Right, but I mean, to put that out to the public, it just says town plan.
Right,
So there's no information for us, for things that are important for me, might not be important for her.
right.
You know, what you pick and choose to spend your evenings after work going to and talking about. So I would like to see the town work with the school to work on the property that they already own, to put the road up there. Like you said, they don't have to buy the property, they already own the property. That's what I would like to see from the board and the town, is to work with the school to use the property further up Route 12.
Yeah, if they want the access.
Right.
That's my opinion. I don't
Oh,
know
yeah,
if
that's what
the rest of the board
I was
feels that.
asking for that. Needs to be taken out of the town.
Yeah, if there's
plan.
one more select board member who wants me to do that, I'll just take that section out of the plan. It doesn't require any more hearings, really easy to do.
Where's your thought, Jess? Do you know which one we're talking
Yeah, I
about?
do. It's fine with me to take it out of the plan, and we can really duly warn residents and actually have a study.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said, it can happen at any point. It doesn't have to be in that plan. That's why
Agreed.
so much of the stuff does not have to be in the plan
Right,
to have it get done, if it ever was gonna get done.
but hopefully it would be duly warned so the property owners would know about it. So this kind of throws me to another thing that's kind of off the town plan. Maybe it was in the town plan at one time, but the dog park. My
Right.
sister-in-law that lives in Bourne's Apartments across the street got a warning about it, but I didn't. And we're the exact same from corner to dog park to my house, from corner from dog park to her house. Didn't affect her, but everybody that stops at the dog park now does a U-turn in my driveway to get out. So I should have been warned about that too.
Right.
So there's
We
lack
did
of.
talk about that at a lot of different meetings.
There's a
I can
lack
tell you
of
that.
warning there for people that it's gonna involve.
Right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any more comments on this, or you?
Just gonna take that section out.
I
It's all
have a
set.
little bit of, can I talk about Katie's Falls designation?
Can we just establish, sorry to cut you off.
No, that's okay.
I just wanted to establish everyone introducing themselves, and then if we're gonna have a time limit on people's comments.
We haven't decided that.
Yeah, okay.
Kind of waiting to see if it was gonna be hard or easy.
Well,
Looks like a pretty tame group here tonight. I'm
It's a
hoping.
tame- It's a tamer group.
Jamie hasn't talked yet, though. I'm picking on you, Jamie. I think you're right, though. I think maybe, limit each person speaking to 2 minutes, and you can speak on 2 different issues or 2 different
4
times. 4 minutes?
4
You
minutes.
speak faster than that, Kelly. Come on.
4.
Yeah, let's go 3.
Okay,
Yeah,
let's go 3.
3.
3 minutes, and
She's
please-
got a
and
timer.
Please introduce yourself.
Okay, so I'm Kelly Connolly, and I live down in Katie's Falls. And there's a designation in there, there's a small little thing in there to change Katie's Falls from agricultural low density to medium density, or high density.
Could you do the page number? I don't think I'm not familiar with it at least.
Yeah, it is in there.
Do you have a page, Kelly?
I don't have a page off the top of my head, I'm sorry, I've been really busy lately.
See if you can find it.
I will, I'll come back.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's no, from my recollection, as the person who wrote most of it, there's no proposed to change any zoning for Katie's Falls. There is a proposal to, as we need more land for single-family homes, connect the existing zoning in Katie's Falls to, like, where Buckwheat lives on Sunset Drive, through like Needle Eye Road, right there, to basically, if you look at the map above Gary, Katie's Falls is right there, it's LDR 4, and you'll see LDR, what is that, 3 in Sunset?
Gary, can you show us where that is?
Katie's Falls is the top left, Gary.
Yeah. Right, yep,
Private
Estates is here.
Yep,
Katie's Falls is to your left.
Katie's Falls is right there.
Drop
That's
down
the-
right there.
New Hamels Road.
Yep.
Katie's Fall Road.
So the only talk about zoning for Katie's Falls, it doesn't change the zoning neighborhood at all. It talks about as needed for single-family homes. It's the white area between those two green areas to fill that in if we need more land for single-family homes.
But
Yeah,
there's
but you
no
can't-
density changes.
Not for
Yeah,
Katie- not
it
for-
was a density change.
not for
It was
Katie's
changing
Falls.
from agricultural, low density, and changing it to medium density.
I don't believe,
That was in here.
I don't believe that's the case.
I'm trying.
Yeah.
I'm getting
Find
worked
it.
up.
Yeah.
While she's looking, I have some related comments. Brooke Scatcherd and live on White Birch Road. Try to be brief. I printed it out as well if someone would like that.
Yeah, I'll take a look.
Okay, thanks. Okay, I'll take some masks so you can see me. Hello. So I think overall, Chapter 2, land use, is often in conflict with Chapter 5. And I think the practice of encouraging infill development throughout town is leading to reduction of natural resources in the rural ag zone. So specific things, page 7, this is, I think, the most alarming sentence. The plan supports reducing the current 80,000 foot minimum lot size to no more than 40,000 square foot in less remote parts of the rural residential ag zone. It's not defined any more clearly than that, and it's, I don't believe that that's a commonly held belief within town, that we should be reducing the density, the minimum lot size, and increasing the density. I would suggest removing that because it's not referenced elsewhere, and it's highly in conflict with all of the natural resource preservation elsewhere in the document. Page 7, instead of that, I would propose exploring increasing the minimum lot size to 3 to 5 acres, which reflects the minimum lot size of neighboring towns. I said this at the last hearing. Stowe and Hyde Park also have their larger minimum lot sizes are 3 to 5 acres, which preserves the rural feel that we enjoy in town.
What was this, the second page you referenced?
That, I was, page 7.
Page 7, third
And
paragraph.
I'm proposing to add that sentence.
Oh, add it.
It sounds like that's
Okay.
not really possible, so I'll focus on things to remove,
Uh-huh,
unless we do another hearing.
uh-huh.
Also on page 7 and 8, it says, major subdivisions shall continue to be done via the conservation subdivision process, and then further preserving to some degree the rural areas. And I think it's not really a great planning document to preserve rural areas to some degree. I think that should be changed to as much as possible in the rural ag zone, maintain the rural character. And then along those lines, page 8, the consensus elsewhere, I suggest removing the sentence. The consensus elsewhere is to encourage infill housing to satisfy demand for housing and population growth. I think that this policy is already encouraging further subdivisions and development in presently undeveloped areas of town. And I think infill development is one of those things that just erodes the forest habitats. Those are the big
When
ones.
you say infill, what does that mean?
Putting houses between existing houses.
Versus zoning new areas for development.
So I could put one in my swamp.
Right.
The intent here is to say, we don't want to zone more land for more housing development, so the intent is here is to add housing where we already have roads, already have water, sewer infrastructure, to use those resources to the best of our ability. So the intent here is to not to do infill versus zoning more land for more out in rural areas to allow new housing development.
So you were just referring to an infill area in Katie's Falls?
I found the section right here, too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Couple last points, I'll be really quick. Page 16, where it discusses the end of the transportation section, there's no mention of bicycles and hardly any mention of pedestrian. And I would suggest adding at least a sentence that all road improvement projects, including those mentioned above, should be planned with measures to increase safety and accessibility for bicycle riders and pedestrians. If we're widening roads, we should put in shoulders for bikes. And then finally, page 30, the Conservation Commission should work with the Planning Council to develop additional conservation criteria that could be used to assess and minimize the impact of new developments. And I appreciate on page 31 the discussion of the section 340 environmental resource areas being pursued by the Conservation Commission. So.
Okay, Todd, do you want to respond to any of what he said?
I think I gave the one response.
Just one
regarding
response.
infill versus new zoning. No,
Right.
I think it's just a public hearing. I don't think we need to respond to everything. I mean,
Okay.
this is a public hearing, and
Yeah.
the select board can decide to make any changes or not.
Right.
In many ways, though, we're putting the roof on the house at this meeting. The select
Yeah.
board, I mean, we've done this for multiple years, so I'm not expecting to make many additional changes. If the select board wants me to, we can, but it has to start the process over again. So
Right.
it's up to the board.
It's too bad you weren't involved in
Well-
the first 20 revisions we had, you know.
Right. I was at the last meeting and said much of this. It wasn't captured in the minutes and I didn't type it.
Right.
But yeah, I think that the other thing is like, no one was invited. There's been no public invitation to be involved
Well,
in the process.
the invitation
I
is
understand-
when you warn a meeting.
Right.
Invitations don't go out to people that are just might be
There's been
interested.
no facilitated process, which many other towns do.
But people, if you want to get involved in your government and know what's going on, you check that website. Check that website all the time. They're always on there. Those agendas are there. I check them all the time.
That's different than a
But
facility.
people don't do it. It's like, I wasn't involved in this 14 years ago, and I started reading this stuff. I started getting involved, started going.
Starting to do that now, triggered by this process.
Right.
And I think that's a good thing.
It is.
But I really think that what you're hearing over and over again is that at this moment, people want at least one more round
Right.
of editing. And so far, I don't think anyone has presented a reason time-wise that that can't happen. That question did come up in the last round of meetings, and I think maybe that's something to address in this meeting. Is it possible to do another round of edits?
It is.
I can
Do
tell
whatever
you
we
from
want.
my experience, been in what, 2, 3 of them, is there's always going to be another one that wants another change. Always going to be someone that wants
Doesn't
another
matter.
change. There is. So are you ever going to have a 10-year plan that you can put down and live by it? I'm just frustrated because I know all these planners that come to these meetings all the time, and they put in so much time and effort and work into it, and including Todd. This is what Todd does, you know, and it's great that people want to get involved, but when you come at the very 11th hour and you want to change big stuff in this plan, it's a big deal.
That's
I
fine.
also think we should, I hear what you're saying, Bob, and coming from someone who is new to the board and new to town government, I can say it's not a transparent process until you're part of the process.
It
And it
feels
takes
like
a lot of work to understand and navigate the system. Also, what I'm hearing, again, is that people are looking for a facilitated, formal process to come up with this plan, and that is not the process that we're currently operating under. And I also think it is important to consider the fact that even if people may have been, in theory or, in theory invited, or actually, invited to all of the planning council meetings, we were also under lockdown, and people weren't going to in-person meetings very much. So I'm not saying that's totally negates what you're saying. I'm not trying to, raise, I'm raising another point here that I said what I needed to say.
okay. Hank,
So I'm not complaining, but it is not transparent because like now I signed up again and I'll probably be told a few times about the meetings and agendas, but they disappear. And I think if you are signing up on the list to be getting the agendas and stuff, that they should always be there instead of all of a sudden they disappear. And this, I only heard about this because I heard about it from a friends of Morrisville, from hearsay, and it is hard. I work 6 days a week, have a child, and I can't go look at the newspaper all the time because I don't get it. I can't go look at the board all the time and I'm busy. And so if you know, maybe the town needs to be better at keeping a list of spreading the email agenda for the week or month, whatever it is. And, you know, because I'm on it now, I'll probably be on it for a few weeks and then all of a sudden it'll disappear again. So it is harder for people who do want to be part of the process to be part of it, I guess.
And your website, you can go to your website, and I don't know how, well, Kathy Chafee, I don't know what other towns do, but I can look into it, is there's only the last year of any minutes. If we want to be more transparent, I think you need to go back a little further with minutes.
Well, you can call to get those if you want.
Yeah,
You come in and look them up.
you want, so that's really that's inefficient with for your staff. To have somebody call and then mail it or email it or whatever to them. If the internet's there, it's not going away, you've got plenty of space in your system to put at least the last year, so it would be 2021. And want to go forward, do, you know, go 1920, okay, we're going into 22, take 19 out, do 2021. Especially in the zoning only goes back to last year. And I think
You're right, it'd be
that is
helpful.
very important, that it needs to go back further than that. If you want to be a transparent board, that needs to happen.
More transparent.
Yeah.
Just real briefly, I understand your situation. I've served on town committees, and getting the word out, it feels like you're doing it all the time. This is a really big document though, and there's some substantial changes. In the town plan drafting document supplied by the state, it mentions multiple times how community engagement is important. And there's this beautiful quote that says, when it comes to planning, if you're not doing it with people, they think you're doing it to them. And I think that's what the reaction you're
Exactly.
getting.
That's true. We've got 3 or 4 hands. I know
Bob,
Kristen's
yeah,
first.
we have 2 people online that have had their hands up for some time now.
Okay.
Laura Streets has been on for a long time.
Yeah. Well, let's do these 3 here, and then we'll do the ones online. Kristen.
So, Kristen Conley, I'm just representing myself as a citizen, not my work on the Conservation Commission, and also not in relation to the other Conley in the room. So I just wanted to say that on page 19 of the changes, this has actually been in there for quite a while, but I just recently had a look at it, and I think that the wording is misrepresentative of what it is trying to accomplish when looking at the implementation plan. Number 2 on the implementation plan says this plan supports studying what it would entail to update the village charter, expanding the village boundary line into developed sections of town. I think a couple of people have mentioned this as a concern without knowing maybe that it was worded in a couple of places. Maybe they did. But I think that removing on page 19 how it is worded, however, the current status of the village paying property taxes to the town for non-revenue producing properties should come to an end either via the sale of subject properties or the possible expansion of village line, so that most of these properties can be located inside the village limits and therefore become tax exempt. I think that it's important to note that our village is roughly 2.5 by 2.5 miles. If we are using Bugby Springs, which is located 2 miles outside of the village limits, as a benchmark for where we're going to push our village line, I think that that is not representative of what we're trying to have as a village. If you think about everything that is within 2 miles in either direction, if we're trying to just reach that one property that is owned by the trustees or Morrisville Village, there's no other properties that they own outside of that line.
Every telephone pole we get taxed on outside the
Okay.
village. So every telephone pole, the hydro in Katie's Falls, there's lots of properties in Stagecoach, Katie's Falls area. I mean, the village line is largely arbitrary. It's a political line for when the village was incorporated in 1890. But most people, even in this room, probably don't know where exactly the village line is. Wally does. The main difference is when the village of Morrisville owns a property outside village limits in Morristown, it's taxable. So we as a community, I think in the town plan spend send $125,000 a year roughly to the state for education taxes that we don't need to be sending.
Right, but
Just
outside of the
because they're-
village line, how much other property is there? We're using Bugby Springs as the
Oh, there's
example
I think
here,
there's-
but that's 2 miles outside of the
There's
village line.
dozens and dozens of them. There's lots of properties. Every telephone pole, the village pays taxes to the state on telephone poles that are located in Morristown.
So I guess I'm not disagreeing with you. I know that you know
Just a
what
piece of
our
mind.
town owns
Yeah.
and what our village owns because you work for both of them. I just think that the phrasing of this, that we should push the village line so that property should be exempt from taxes. If we're using Bugby Springs as the example, that doesn't match. Because if you look at it, it's 2 miles outside of town and our village is only 2.5 miles square, or it's not
I
square.
think
but
ultimately you
whatever.
want to abolish the village line. That's probably the easiest way to do it. And then you're not,
Maybe
then Morrisville's
incorporate
not,
both.
yeah, then Morrisville's not paying taxes to Morristown. So the
Right.
$120,000 is just the education part. I mean, the one of the largest taxpayers to the town is the village. And it's not just one hand paying the other, because most of your taxes go to the state, and the state distributes them to other communities. So we're literally spending money on, even if you all Morrisville and Morristown the same, it's not. We spend taxes on Morrisville properties in Morristown. And most of that money we're just sending out of town and have no say over it and say, see you later. So that's the intent. The intent isn't like to rezone the Bugby Springs area and make the village 2 miles bigger. The intent is to really, long-term, eliminate that line, and so we're not paying property taxes to ourselves, where most of them goes to the state regardless.
No, but everybody in that circle or in that square that you made would then be paying village tax on top of town tax.
I mean, the village tax is like $8 a year.
Um,
I think mine's $12 a year.
Tiny.
It's a very
I
extremely
pay no
small
more
percentage.
taxes. I live in a house at 1820.
Well,
It's a jump.
I'll use my property example. For the guy, I think I pay like $12 or $14 a year in village tax. I'm pretty sure the savings of taxes, property we're not taxing each other on and sending to the state will make up for that. Because and the village is going to be spending less money on its ratepayers because it's not paying taxes to the town and largely sending most of the money to the state and raising the village tax for that. So it's not like a zero-sum game. Your village tax would be less than $15 a year in your house. Guaranteed less than 20.
Go ahead, Wally.
Just a quick comment on Bugsby Springs.
Sorry,
Value of Wally Reeve,
thank you.
the value of Bugsby Springs to the village is its water. Okay?
Right.
It's another source of very pure drinkable water that can be tapped into in case something happens. Other than that, it has no value. The land that was the village owned that was in the town of Hyde Park has been sold, okay, to I'm Owing Seeds. So we're no longer paying taxes on that to the village, to the town of Hyde Park. If the town approached the village and wanted to purchase Bugsby Springs and leave the water rights to the village, I think the village trustees and the village voters would be more than happy to do that.
Right.
And that would save probably $3,400 or $4,300 of the taxes annually paid to the town by the village for Bugby Springs, where 2/3 to 3/4 of that goes to the state for education money.
Right.
So maybe the trustees and select board could strike a deal to sell the parcel, village retains the water rights, and then we eliminate a tax bill, which
And
was
just
getting sent to
for
both
people's
villages.
information, Wally is a village trustee.
Was.
Was.
Retired.
Retired.
I no longer deal with that.
Okay. You have knowledge, though.
Again, I am saying that I think that this line should be stricken. That is my suggestion. I'd like you to consider the part specifically that says that it supports expanding the village line tied to that. I don't think that it should be on page 19 under the miscellaneous government properties.
It's at the bottom there.
It's in your changes.
Which line
It's in your changes.
At the very
So,
bottom.
or the possible expansion of the village line, so most of the properties can be located inside the village limits. I think that it's enough to say the current status of the village paying property taxes to the town for non-revenue producing properties should come to an end either via the sale of the subject properties, period. So get rid of either and also, or the possible expansion of the village line, so most of these properties can be located within the village limits.
Okay,
That's my suggestion. Thank you
thanks.
very
Good.
much.
We'll do Ron and then
Nielsen.
Yeah, we've got like 6 to do, yeah. Ron, you first.
Ron Stankus, I'm coming here as a town resident. Even though I wear another hat as the chair of the Morristown Conservation Commission. Very quickly, in my hat of the MCC, I have researched all the properties owned by Village of Morristown. I want to leave out water and light because they're really just a department. Maybe their personal property can be taxed. But anyway, at the intersection of Dowling Road and Route 15A,
Yeah.
there's 2 parcels of land there that are taxed. Now, I'm reading this page 6 of 10, and that's basically what I came in for tonight, was it'd be more advantageous if some of those properties were deeded to the town. And they would be paying tax on it.
What page?
That's the water source
On this one here.
for Village of Morrisville currently. The well
this one
out
here.
there at the intersection of 15A and 15. And the,
Page 6. 6 of 10.
Darwin Road. Quite a bit of land there. There's also another parcel of land on Cadiz Falls where there's the, just below the dam, bordering the Cadiz Falls Road. There's acreage there that houses a building and a sluice for the water to go to the generator. That land in particular can't be developed. It's wetlands, border the Memorial River, leave it to the town. But anyway, what really concerns me is the proposal of extending the village limits. This, it goes back to Chapter 7 implementation, the very first thing. Study fuel town name. It's one town, Morristown. Been that way when it was conceived. And anyone who lives in the village who thinks they are not in the town, they're misrepresented. Because if you look on your deed, it says, Town of Morristown, County of Vermont, State of Vermont. And that's the way it's going to be. I'm for doing away with the trustees and having a water and light department under the town with a select board. That's what I'm for.
Thanks, Ron. Jamie, you first, and then you, ma'am.
We have people online.
Yeah, I know, I'm gonna go to them after.
James Brewster, Morristown. I'll be quick here. Page 12, climbing lanes. I appreciate Todd's work after a discussion that he and I had and the changes that he made. But with some follow-up I did with Agency of Transportation, I'm going to request that all references to that Schuylsdale Hill section in climbing lanes be removed from the public outreach manager at AOT. She says, while there was mention of wildlife crossings in the initial request from the town of Stowe regarding speed limits in this area, it appears that the speed limit changes made in 2015 were in response to concerns regarding safety. And the current town plan talks, it said there were wildlife. At the intersection of 100 Moscow Road, and that the town withdrew its request to extend the 40-mile-an-hour zone south to include Schuylsdale Hill for wildlife crossings. So according to the AOT, the speed limit drop in that area was not to do with wildlife, as we have written in our town plan. Additionally, they go on the possibility of a climbing lane or passing lane along Vermont Route 100, Waterbury-Stowe line, Schuylsville, however, is highly unlikely due to the wildlife sensitivity of the area. It's one of the top 5 wildlife crossing points in the entire state, higher speeds of passing traffic, and another lane would be the exact opposite of what would be wanted here. So it just seems that it's just not worth putting it in there. It's not something that's going to happen. The state's going to fight us on it. It seems kind of petty, I think, on our part. And in reality, when you do the math, when you drop that speed limit from what they did from 50 to 40 on that section from the lower village to the Moscow Road, you're saving yourself, or you're adding 30 seconds to your travel time. So we're looking at pissing and moaning over 30 seconds. That seems kind of petty to me. Additionally, the concept, page 23, sewer payments being pushed out to the people of the town. Again, absolutely not. I think that should be removed. The sewer, that's on the village. That's on the people that live down here and the businesses. The town plan process. I know a lot of folks have talked about wanting to be included, not feeling that it has been warned properly. I looked up Vermont statutes online, Title 24, Chapter 117, 4384, preparation of plan hearings by Planning Commission. Now, Todd and I have talked about this, and we don't agree. But in Vermont State's and online, it says, at the outset of the planning process and throughout the process, planning commissions shall solicit the participation of local citizens and organizations by holding informal working sessions that suit the needs of the local people. Now, I would argue that having people come to the planning council meetings to discuss this doesn't constitute an informal work session.
Why do you say that?
I would say that an informal work session would be something set along by itself. It would not be part of an official warned meeting that was set up for some other reason. And the planning council meetings, those are official meetings. They happen every 2 weeks, whatever it is. They're official. I would say that an informal work session would be something that was, hey, we're going to get together. People have talked about having meetings with a moderator to discuss this stuff, to flesh this stuff out. I think that is more along the lines of the spirit of this law. And I'm just laying it out there. And additionally, with regards to the process, I looked at the Stowtown plan from 2018-2015. They have a whole section in here that talks about public participation in the planning process. It says the commission held 20 public meetings throughout 2014, many of which were well attended and received a great deal of input from the Stowe community that was incorporated into this plan. And it lists all the different stuff that they did with the community. This is something that we could add into our plan, because I think there are people who say, well, we weren't included. But if we know that they were, we could include it.
Can I respond to that? We're beyond the time.
We're way over time anyway.
Okay, quick two things.
We held well more than 20 hearings on this. We've probably done 40.
That's fine.
Over the years, we started this to Jess's point, we started this before the pandemic, 2018, 2019, we've done this for years.
And you and I are in disagreement as to what's an informal working session and so on and so forth. And we don't need to deliberate this. Remember, this is a public hearing where I get to say, and you don't need
Right,
to.
but you were told you had 3 minutes, about 3 minutes ago.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you. But I feel like I wanted to respond to that because I went to a couple of those meetings this summer at Copley Country Club, and it was very informal. We were all sitting around several tables, just chatting. Anybody that wanted to can come up there. It did not seem like this strict meeting that it was very difficult to deal with. It was awesome. My wife went with me, and she was like, hey, this is not bad, this is fun.
Was it warned as a select board meeting or?
Planning council meeting.
All warned as planning council meetings. We've done this for years.
I'm
sorry that you're at the
I
end of the
read that
process.
paper every week, like from front to cover, because a lot of the things that I do.
Which paper, Kelly?
The News and Citizen.
They
When
don't
we get it now-
cover any planning in it.
What's
They
that?
don't cover planning in it generally.
No, but I always am looking for those meetings because the
They're not
job I
in there.
used to
They're
have.
not in there.
Well, where are they?
But ask Tommy Gardner, get him to put them in there.
They're every day, they're here in the town offices, they're at the library, they're at the post office.
They're not in the paper.
They're
Dude,
on the
I work
website.
all day long.
Yeah, I
I
hear.
work 12
Right.
hours,
I
10 hours
Are
a
they-
day.
Bob, comments
Are they
direct
on-
to the
are they
floor
on the
chair,
select-
not back and
Yeah,
forth, please.
yeah, that's right.
Are they on
We
the
get-
webpage?
We gotta have more order here, not just blurt out comments here and there.
And we're supposed
No.
to try to stick to the changes, that was the intent of the
Yes.
meeting.
Right,
Oh.
the changes.
We're redoing the same meeting as last time.
Right. Ma'am, it's your turn. Can you tell us who you are? And
My name is Talib Nelson. I live in Morristown, south of the town. I've been here for more than 40 years. I found out about the document, thank you, that Jess put something on Front Porch Forum, and then I was able to download it and really see you guys, this is an amazing document. It's not done for sure, but there's been a lot of work that has gone into it, and each chapter is very informative. But to get that yesterday and to try to come here prepared, I'm not prepared the way so many people are prepared tonight. But I do appreciate the work that's been done. But I'm not here as an adversarial person. I'm here, and it's not like you and us and they. Somewhere we have to join together to figure out how we can make this work. This man that talks about informal meetings, you have an agenda, you decide that you're going to be on a working committee, you are going to attend the meetings, you have tasks you're going to do. That would be very helpful. A lot of us work like crazy. We don't check the things we should be checking. So, I mean, I found out about it on Front Porch Forum. Okay. But at least I found out about it, and I feel remiss that I haven't been part of it, because development, to me, in this community, I look around and I go, oh my God, what are we doing? Okay, we need housing, so I can't dispute that we need housing. We need housing, and you're doing the best you can. But my thing about the young man in the front who talks about considering environment, the nature of the rural environment, and how do we factor that in also with what we're doing here, to me is very important. I don't want to lose the vision of Vermont and ruralness by seeing a megamopolis here. But I want to be able to say, yeah, we need housing. And is there a way that we can continue to have housing, but yet consider all the other variables that people have brought up tonight? Because I think there's a lot of important things that have been brought up. And I think there's been a lot of enormous work that you all have been done, so I'm not negating that. But I would like to see a way that we could all, as a community, be engaged in a way. Maybe we're being remiss because we're not seeing things, but we want to be involved. So how can we be involved? And you don't feel like we're just coming in here attacking what you're doing, because that's not where I'm coming from. But I do have an idea of what I don't want to see. But the only way that's going to happen is if we talk together and we find out the details of what's going on here. That's all I have to say.
thank you.
Thank you for having the meeting.
Thank you. And we're going to go to the folks virtually. I know Laura Street's been waiting a long time, and so is Ed. Laura, you go first.
Okay.
Can you hear me, Laura? You got your hand up. Maybe she got frustrated.
Laura, you might be muted.
Ed, can you hear us? You're muted too, Ed.
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, we good. I had some notes of some broad issues here, but I think I'm going to skip them in the interests of time. Just touch on them.
3 minutes.
3 minutes. That's good to know. I can watch on the clock there. So the first thing I want to say is in terms of warning, I think if you really, really want citizen involvement right from the get-go, which would have saved you after so many drafts, having to go through this as if you were doing it from scratch. I can appreciate the frustration you must feel. I wouldn't have the stomach for that. I admire you for doing it. You really have to announce these things with what's called push marketing. You can't put something in a location like post this at headquarters and then expect people to go to it. Some will, but almost nobody will. I look for these issues. I'm active. I want to be interested in this. And it was a total surprise to me when it was explained to me that these hearings have been going on for a couple of years or more. You know, where was I? I never saw this. So the standard of publicity today in this area seems to be front page forum. So I would have to say, if you really want citizen involvement and you haven't posted it frequently, it's not a lot of work to do that on front page forum. You can't say you have solicited involvement. The other thing is, I think some tutorial by the people engaged in writing this, and I'm thinking mostly of Todd rather, who has an actual master's degree in how to do this stuff, that teaches the citizens who want to be involved what the scope of this is. What I'm seeing in these hearings and on comments is this endless parade of individual issues. I don't want to demean them by saying pet issues, because every one of them is an important thing that the town should have been paying attention to quite some time ago. But they're not all issues of discussion for a town plan necessarily. They should be broader issues that define situations or things we're doing we shouldn't be doing, and vice versa, that incorporate these issues. Things like issues of transparency, for example, that have come up in the last year in some things, some areas. And there are some things that made it onto the town plan. I don't know if they're still here, that, you know, I'd need to see the research that you did to want to put it into the town plan. Things that might ultimately, once publicized, be objects of ridicule. And I'm thinking mostly of the attempt to get other towns in the state highway department to let us dictate how they're going to move traffic through their towns. The very concept that we'd be a bedroom community, for example, for people that want to work. In the midst of redefining the concept of work, those may be dead issues within a year or two. You know, why you'd put that in the town plan rather than focusing on things we should be influencing. So I have
Thanks,
a
Ed.
little.
You hit your 3 minutes, Ed.
Okay, great. I'll submit the rest of this in writing to you all.
That'd be great. Thank you. Laura, can you hear us now? Laura. She's muted or she can't hear us.
She's frozen.
She's frozen.
She's frozen now. We'll come back to you, Laura. Somebody else have a comment?
Can I have my
Go
turn
ahead.
back?
One more. You got one more.
One
Oh,
more?
this is the same one.
This is
But
the
no more
same
outbursts.
one. It was on page 8. Page 8, so it says right, God, I just had it in my hand.
It's the first paragraph, it's the third bolded wording. I think that's what you're referring to.
Let's go to 9. Well, that's 6 we're looking at.
Oh, there you go. That's a difference.
That's the difference. The council should only focus on converting land zoned rural residential agricultural zone to low or medium density residential in areas where municipal services already exist or can be extended to, such as Katie's Falls, Morristown Corners, Pinewood Estates, and along such, and extended, and along Needles Eye Road. So my concern about that is that anybody that drives through there, you take your life in your hand anytime you try to cross that road. I literally have had people drive up on Barbdera's Hill to get around us when we were trying to cross the road. That road can't take any more traffic. It can't. They come down through there Mach 4. I'm not kidding you.
At least it's 25-mile-an-hour zone.
It is a 25-mile-an-hour zone. I've had people give me the finger and scream at me when I tell them, when I'm trying to cross the road, and they won't stop. And that town, you know, Katie's Falls just can't take anymore.
That's a tough road. It is.
It can't take any more traffic. Literally, there's no signs. We've asked for signs that say residential zone. Dan Lindley said, they don't pay attention to it anyway. When they were repaving that road, we asked them to do a little bit of change into it, you know, because it's not safe. The water comes down that road and it freezes over, and it's like my grandmother had a garage out there. I don't know if you remember that. There's a little garage right there. That thing must have been here, what, 3-4 times? Mm-hmm. They'd come off the Needle Eye Road and they'd slam right into it because nobody stops there. We very seldom have police on that road, and when they do, they're up at Herchak's. I mean, what good does that do down there on that hill?
I'm sure Jason would park right in your driveway if you asked him.
I wish he would. I wish he would.
You
I
can
would
park in my driveway on Copley Avenue too, you get a
lot
of money there.
I would let you park in my driveway because you can tuck back enough so they wouldn't see you when you're coming up that hill.
Sometimes those speed trailers or maybe the radar
Yeah, they put them out
signs.
there by Herchak's.
Right.
What
put
good's
it,
that do?
Put it more toward Pitts or through your place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, what good's it do way up there? They're coming down that hill and then they hit the gas and come up the hill.
Well, thank you.
I
Do you have
just
any-
would like to see that just stay, like, until we can figure out the road issue. We don't need any more people in that village. Literally. And I don't know what you can do about that, but let's fix the road first.
Yeah, the intent again is not to actually change anything in where you live. It's where Gary pointed, it shows on page 10 of the plan. Oh,
I know, but they're using the Needle Eye Road. You're gonna take out the bridge? You're gonna take out the one left trestle bridge in the state?
No, you can't, it's a historic structure. On page 10, it shows connecting those areas when we need single-family home, land for single-family homes, connecting LDR4 to LDR3, or LDR5 to LDR1. The intention isn't to change it. This plan in no way talks about changing your zoning where you live, Kelly. In zero way. It talks about adding in areas around that is if we need land for single-family homes.
But that, you're missing the point. It's gonna add to the burden on the roads. It's gonna add additional traffic on the roads. The whole zoning thing, there's nobody in Katie's Falls that's gonna like subdivide their plots. I mean, I'm not even worried about that. What I'm worried about is the added traffic on the roads. Until that road can be fixed somehow or another, and I don't even know how you would do
Yeah,
that.
they're the road people, not me.
Yeah, until that could get done, you can't add any more traffic there.
We were hoping that the bypass would alleviate some of the traffic that
Oh my
uses
God.
Katie's Falls Road. And it probably does, but that doesn't mean
Some.
there's still not a lot of traffic.
Yeah, but it got wild this summer with the construction. I mean, it literally, there was people giving us fingers. Barb Dare almost got hit. She literally had to run across the road. She's 80 years old.
At least the heavy trucks aren't supposed to use the bridge now, so aren't supposed to.
They're not supposed to, but they do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hank, you had a comment?
Yeah, hey, good. I own Chuck's Bikes, and I have 3 kids visiting from abroad, coming back from college to visit family, and 3 of them are like, what is going on with the development in this town? So I'm not trying to change the town plan. I'm just saying that you guys really need, and ladies, need to think about long-term ramifications of it. For one, the big development Grand Mink wants to do, I am totally opposed to that. I'm sure there's a lot of other people, because that's going to change the whole school structure too. So it's not just development. You've done a great job with the town, but I think there needs to be some railing in on the leashes, because that's not a small project. 140
136.
or 130, okay, 136, gone overinflated. So you really have to think long term, because you don't want to be like every exit along the highway. We don't, yeah.
Thanks,
I
Hank.
have to second when he said that's what I was talking about too, partially.
Thank you. Wally?
Bob, thank you. If I may just give a little history on some town plans and some effects. I was on the Board of Village Trustees when we voted to remove ourselves from the Morrill County Planning Commission. And Todd and Trish had personality issues and planning conflicts with people there. They supported ours voting to remove ourselves from there. The other issue is one member of the village trustees had real concerns with the Morrill County Planning Commission trying to tell us what we had to do. So the history was we rejected other people telling us what we had to do, and us telling AOT and Stowe and Johnson and other villages, towns, what they had to do with their traffic, I think is kind of, we voted to remove ourselves from the Morrill County Planning Commission. Now we're in a hurry to get back into that organization.
We're already in it.
Well,
Yes, but I mean, the town plan and the downtown designation and all that. So as I say, you kind of, 6, 7 years ago we were saying this, now we're saying something different.
Well, I think I think you're right. I
That's
mean,
the history. That's
I
all I'm
was
saying.
there also, you know, when we did it. But I think we've all come to realize that we do need to work together if we can. And I agree, we've got some great talent with Tricia and with Todd. We can do a lot of that stuff ourselves. We don't need the LCPC, but there are things the LCPC does help a lot with. There's a lot of grants that come from them, a lot of state stuff, a lot of the downtown designation stuff that we do need. And so we decided, we want to try to work with them, but I understand what you're saying. LCPC is an arm of the state. No matter how they're described, they're an arm of the state, and more state control isn't necessarily good for the towns.
That was just the history, because some of the people in this room weren't involved.
That's
with it.
fair.
You and I were. and
That's
so,
fair.
yeah.
But we have really come full circle, I believe, with the LCPC and are using them. They have some planners that have been great help to us, and and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to foster that and get away from the past history where we didn't get along. Right. So
I totally agree with that. I was just pointing out that one of our reasons for leaving there was because they were trying to tell us what to do. Maybe we should not try so hard to suggest to them what they need to do.
Right. And we also have Judy who sits on that board too, and that's helpful. So, thanks, Wally.
Thanks for your time.
Yeah, Tom, I know you were waiting for a while. Go ahead.
I just want to know, is there a way that to approve this plan tonight, that we could have a meeting later with inclusive, that we not just put it on the town sites that we're going to have a meeting to discuss this plan, but really get the word out and have an inclusive where everybody has input for this plan, and have that meeting and possibilities of revising this plan. Is that possible? Can this board do that?
I think so. I mean, I appreciate everybody that comes here and has, something for input. I understand it. I appreciate it. We are at the 21st, 22nd version, but can we change it? Yeah, we can change it. If there's enough reason to do it, our board can say, look, we don't want that, or we want to make a change. It's not just cutting something out. So we can kick the can a little bit and make those revisions, and if it makes a better plan, we can do it.
And Tom, we can't approve anything tonight, just so you're aware. Any votes have to be after the hearing is closed. So even if they decided to close the hearing tonight and we're okay with the plan as is, they can't vote on this plan until their next meeting later this month.
Yeah, I wanted to have you explain exactly the process and when it will be dubbed the new town plan.
Depends how many times you keep changing it.
Right.
Yeah, I can't answer.
If we don't make any changes.
If we don't make any changes. Well,
other than taking something out.
Yes, if we don't make any changes other than taking something out, the board can close the hearing tonight and can vote on the plan at their next regular meeting. So today is the 3rd, and then the board could vote on the plan on the 17th. Remember, there's two bodies that need to approve this plan.
The trustees also have to.
The trustees need to approve this plan as well. The trustees have to agree to changes in the plan on Wednesday night's hearing, and then we'll have to, you said one more meeting after that at a minimum. But every time we make a change, we have to go back to the planning council where, there's a lot of people at this meeting, but there have been many more people than this at the planning meetings where the town plan was actually written over the last 3 years. This is a small subset of the overall public involvement. That board writes the plan, and the select board is the one who has to approve it, and the trustees ultimately. So really, this board should be directing the planning council to make changes. The changes really need to come from the planning council. That's the actual planning body. This is just the approval body. So it starts the process again, we make changes. The planning council will make the changes, has to update the reporting form, which updated again for tonight, and maybe update again. We'll see what the board wants to do and what the trustees want to do as well.
Yeah, so it's really like you guys, and it's great you come, but it's coming to the select board. We're the people that rubber stamp it at the end.
Yeah, it's a wrong board for change.
It's the wrong board to really go with your concerns. The right board is the planning council. But we understand why you're here, and you want to have a place you can speak. Go ahead, Kristen.
Just speaking to that as a participant in the process who sat at many of the meetings at planning council and is trying, really tries to go to the next meeting too. why can't the trustees and the select board meet together so that people who have concerns don't have to show up to 2 meetings after showing up to 20 meetings over the course of years? You know, it's
Right, we do have
exhausting.
that. We do have that, just not,
That was the golf course.
We did one.
yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, but then after the golf course meeting, which I was in attendance for, I had to attend the last 2 meetings
Right.
and this meeting and next meeting in order to be heard.
It's a lot of meetings. I go to all of them.
I
There's a lot of them.
understand, because
Yeah.
I see you there.
Yeah.
So, you know, like,
Preaching to the
like,
choir.
I have a child and a job and a life, you know, like, and I want to be a participant, and I look for the agendas, and I understand the frustration, because it's hard to keep up, you know, it's hard. It's hard to be involved and to know what's going on in town. But you can do it, but it takes a lot of time, and I'm not a paid employee, you're paid.
Yep.
So like for me to be here, you know, like it's like a little different. So it would be appreciated if you could make that step to make it a little bit easier
I
on
think,
people who
I
want to
think
be
one
involved.
of the issues is also space.
Yeah,
Because
but-
when we did it up at the country club, and it was, you know, with COVID and everything, it's difficult here. We're running out of space right now to have, if we had a trustees meeting and a select board meeting at the same time. So those are also other issues that come into it. I agree with you about the transparency. I have talked with Tommy Gardner about how can we get more information out to the community, and it's really difficult. It's a difficult, I don't have any answers, but I know that it is a problem.
Yeah, and I'm less concerned about the transparency because I understand how to do it. Like other people not understanding, I think they're understanding now that there is a way to be able to find them because I showed up at the meetings, I found them, so like, I know they're there. It's easier if people had reached out beforehand and held a big, maybe at the golf club, instead of having a steak dinner, it could have been a town meeting style event where more people were there, besides just people who sat on boards in town and you guys and the trustees, you
Does
know?
the library still have a meeting room? Is that?
It would,
No.
We own the
It's a-
school.
it's a,
Really?
Yeah.
You
It's
know,
possible.
there's the school
We've met before at the VFW before,
Right.
American Legion, I mean,
I understand
Senior
the
center.
connection, I'm offering how that could
Right.
have possibly.
right. And we have had many joint meetings, not just for that steak dinner. We've had many joint meetings in the past that I remember. It just doesn't happen every time, but it would be helpful if we could. Hank, you first and then you, Ron.
So can a business owner, non-resident, be on a select or planning board?
Yes.
There's no openings, I've been looking.
Depends on the board, but
I've been looking.
you can't be on a select board, but you can be on some of the other boards.
Planning and DRB, the boards statutorily require a majority of the members to be town residents or village residents. So for example, on the DRB, Paul Trudell, who's been on the DRB for 3 generations now, is a Hyde Park resident. And on the planning council, Alan Van Anna from Lost Nation and Josh Goldstein are both Elmore and Wolcott residents. So you don't have to be a town resident. Just a majority have to be town residents.
Okay. Laura, can you hear me? Just,
Laura, she typed a note.
right, I got it right here.
You did get that, okay.
I've got Laura's note, or I guess she's
Still frozen.
frozen up there. Laura Street said, please remove last paragraph on page 23. No taxing town for village septic.
That's also
yeah.
That was her comment.
And I
Go ahead.
am a business owner and I've had total many calls with the water and light about overcharges. They will not give me 2 meters even if I offer to pay for 2 meters because I use about 100 gallons in the downstairs and the upstairs uses the apartment. So they came up with a magic number to charge me and it's way too much. And then they won't do any, like say you fill up your pool, I've heard of many people filling up their pools and get charged for sewer because they filled their pool. So they took 5,000 gallons and they get charged for 5,000 gallons of sewer when it's in their pool the whole time. So if you guys are kind of together,
no.
you're not.
No.
So I just
We're not in charge of
heard some
utility.
language about that from you about having a department of the town. Did you say that? The water and light? Or, okay, so it's nothing, so disregard what I said.
Right.
Of the village.
Okay,
Really.
So,
Go ahead, Wally.
I'll just comment back because I was on the board when we started doing meters. We discovered that we had 5,000 pools in the village of Morristown. Everybody said they filled their pool. Well, there's not 5,000 pools in the village of Morristown because not everyone is totally upfront with what they use. And I'm not saying
Yeah, oh, yeah.
any different.
Yeah, yeah.
What I'm saying, as a board, we look, you use it, these are the costs.
Right. Okay.
I just have one comment, and that is, I'm sort of disappointed that there isn't at least one individual here on the planning council to listen to the comments of the
Or a trustee.
people. Or trustee.
I agree with you.
Who were on the planning council? Could you just tell us who was on the planning council?
Well, I don't have the list in front of me. Do you know? Can you list them? Etienne is the chairman, right?
Etienne Hancock's the chair. The vice chair is Tom Sniff, who's also a village trustee. Then there's Josh Goldstein, Alan Van Anda, and Steve Foster.
Steve Foster.
and they're all Morrisville residents?
No, Alan and Josh are not.
I just don't understand how somebody from another town can decide what Morrisville's gonna look like. And
Well, it
people-
depends. I mean,
They are business, I mean.
they're
Alan's
business owners here.
He pays taxes.
You know, I know a lot of business owners that do a ton of business in Morrisville, but they don't live in Morrisville, and they're upset that they can't even complain about the taxes.
That's the state
They
statute.
don't have a voice.
That's what the state statute says. But this board and the trustee is the appointing body, so if people don't like the select board appointing non-town residents to the DRB or planning,
Right.
let them know, and it's up to them because they do the appointments.
It is.
So just, I think that you could use your Town of Morrisville Facebook page to get a lot of information out.
We do
You
have one.
Whole control of that, but I went through it the other night and there's not a thing about a meeting.
Well, I don't know if we keep it that up. We don't, yeah, we have to be careful about social media because we get in trouble on social media.
And then I
Try not to do it.
I want you guys to really consider, as you build up in this town, right now, it's taking you 8 months to get an eye appointment in town.
Mhm.
I can't.
If you're not a
I
new
mean, if
patient.
you're
3 months to get a doctor's appointment.
If you're gonna build, put this much, if you're gonna continue building, you need to find, the infrastructure to support it. You really do. I mean, and then the dentist office is 6 months. And then I make 3 appointments at a time.
Right.
So I know that they're there, but I'm making them a year at a time, but we don't have enough infrastructure to fill what we're bringing in for people.
Thanks for the input. Do we have any other? Oh, Laura, can you hear us now?
Yes, I'm sorry, I was having
Hey.
technical difficulties.
Go ahead.
Okay, this is my 4th time requesting this. On page 23, the last paragraph, that refers to, that begins, it's important to note that this plan also views the existence of sewer septic as a common good. As a town person, I want to say that every town person I've spoken to have said that if this village wants to incur all of our costs that we do for our own personal septic, then we can all get along. However, a new building went on right behind me. Their new mound system cost them over $30,000. I live in a development. There's 5 of us who share a leach field. To replace our pump is going to cost $10,000. We pay over $120 each year for power to power the pump. We have to have them, our annual costs run about $500 between maintenance and pumping. So I absolutely believe that we should not, that the town people should not incur any cost for the village septic because we are not on your septic. It needs, the current board members, as far as my research shows, that there is only one town person on the select board. There's only one town person on the board of trustees. I could be wrong about that. But it seems like the people that are voting on this are all from the village. So of course, village people want the town to help pay for your septic. That's not reasonable, and it seems like because we don't have an equitable voice in in either of the boards, it seems like it's taxation without representation. And I also feel that anyone who on both the trustees and the select board, if they've sold property to any of the developers or currently have a right of first refusal, should not be allowed to vote on this at all. I mean, that's an absolute conflict of interest. And I would say that, you know, when I go to the trustees meeting, which I will go to, you know, I have to wait for the village to actually allow me to even speak about this. And you're trying to tax me, and yet the village has the right to decide whether I can speak about it. It needs to be removed. If the village cannot financially manage their septic system, and I should mention that there was a clause that the town should have the option, right of first refusal to buy the Morrisville Power and Light, and they took that out. So the town does not have the right to buy this power company, and if they can't manage it without having to tax people that aren't using it, then they need to sell to a larger business. And you cannot view the town folks as unlimited income. We're already paying close to 11% taxes, highest taxed in the state. So this is not acceptable and needs to be removed, and any discussion about it should end now. Thank you.
Thanks, Laura.
Bob, can I respond to that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Laura, this is Gary. I can't seem to find that on page 23, but we did find it on page 19 of, I don't know which number.
It's on, the town plan that's the revised version that is posted on your website that you guys have directed us to is on page 23. And it's at the very bottom, and it rolls over to the next page. I've checked it 3 times. So I don't know if you have another version, and if the version on the website is not updated, I'm happy to read it to you.
I see it.
Oh, I don't have the latest one in the back.
Do you have another? The draft plan of November 17th has it on page 19.
Yeah,
it's the same thing, but it's on different page, depending on the draft.
Yeah, what I was getting at is I had a note here that we were supposed to remove that.
We removed parts about the town taking over the water and sewer departments.
Yeah.
This part was left as is. The village trustees can't tax town people. They have no statutory authority to do so. The only people that can tax the town are the select board to put together the budget and the town meeting that approves it. So the language is in there to give the select board flexibility. If the select board wanted to help out and put some money towards pre-treatment to help businesses in town, because the sewer plant exists both within the village and extends into the town, this helps because the select board has the authority to do so. But the only people that can tax you, the village trustees can't tax anyone in the town. The select board can put a budget forward that town meeting approves. That's the only way to tax you on something like that. So it's just, the language is there to give the select board flexibility.
Well,
This is the second one.
I mean, I would just like to say, it says right here, this plan supports any effort to spread some of the cost of the sewer plant upgrades and operations to these additional non-user beneficiaries. The current practice has mainly village residents subsidizing the full cost of this sewer system for non-user town beneficiaries. I mean, that's ridiculous. But I also would like, because this is my 4th time, it would be really nice to have a published vote on who's for this and who isn't, because I think the voters have a right to know who wants to tax the town folks for the village septic.
I think what Todd's saying is the residents, the voters would have an opportunity to weigh in on it.
Well, I mean, I think it should be taken out. I mean, if you want to say, if that's your opinion, then you should vote and say, yes, we want the opportunity to tax the town payers for the septic. put it clear and make it clear that you want that. Put it out there. If you think that's something in there, then let all the voters know you think that's a viable option.
Kelly, get one more.
One more, this is my second. So why aren't we looking to the people that are putting the pressure on the septic system? All of the apartment buildings that are coming in, all these people that, I mean, it worked fine before.
The businesses, the breweries, the businesses, restaurants.
I'm not talking about, no, I'm not even talking about that. It worked fine before.
That's the biggest use.
The biggest use is a 137 unit apartment building.
Well, no.
And if you had 2 people in that.
No, that's not correct.
That's.
They want, the village wants that flow. So what Bob is saying is correct. The sewer plant only has minor VOD issues at this point. It really doesn't. The flow is actually equalized at this point. The high strength users, the breweries, the food businesses, were the ones stressing the function of the sewer plant. The sewer plant's operating at half capacity. The residential, the new residential growth you're seeing, and granted, we only added 334 people last census. It's not a ton of people. But the new residential units you're seeing, they want that flow to offset the heavier industrial and commercial flow. The old adage is the best solution for pollution is dilution. The residential uses are diluting the high-strength commercial flow.
Yeah, residential is a very small part of it.
They need more flow to make they need more flow. They want that residential use. And the trustees can explain that better on Wednesday night than I can.
Yeah.
But I've been around long enough.
I wouldn't believe a thing they said anyway, so.
Wally can probably answer that.
I would believe you, but I don't believe any of them.
There were two other issues. One was, it's called BODs, bio-oxygen something, and I'm not saying.
Yeah.
But because of some specific users using large quantities of food products that were coming into the system, the plant was not designed for that volume, okay? And that created an out of balance. They have gone to these people, that has been corrected.
Yes.
Through pre-treatment by the person, the company that created the problem.
Oh, okay.
Inefficiency practices.
Side stream.
So they've improved the practices. The plant, when I was there, was operating below 50% capacity, okay? It was an 8-year plant, there's 5 years left on the bond, I believe, but I could stand to be corrected.
I think it's about right.
Anyway, so the increased uses in the residential demand is not going to overstress the plant for further growth on the commercial side. And anytime you connect a new user to the facility, the state requires them to pay a fee for that. And it's measured on usage, and there's formulas out there.
But it goes to the state, correct?
No, it goes to a fund that is that's maintained by the village for further expansion.
For a new sewer plant. There currently aren't any sewer issues. They want the residential flow to offset the higher strength commercial flow.
But I'm a village resident, and the town people do not need to pay for my septic. Because believe me, I lived in a rural setting for some time called the Griggs Farm, and I know that that's expensive. So, you know, we don't need, as a village resident, I don't need that statement, but that's up to these people to decide.
Yeah. Thanks, Wally, for the explanation.
Thank
Okay, do we have any more comments or input?
Does the board want to go back in deliberative session, like last time?
We could do that.
I'm not sure that we can do deliberative session.
No?
I'm not clear on the statute as to whether deliberative session, you're not sitting as a quasi-judicial board here. This is an approvals process, not a deliberative process. It's not clear to me whether or not they can actually go into deliberative session.
I believe they can, but you're the town.
We did it last time.
Yeah.
But
I know we did it last time. I'm just not sure that we are actually.
right, we need to find that out. But I mean, we're not going to make any actions tonight anyway.
You can't vote on the plan tonight anyway.
No, we're not voting on anything.
So.
Go ahead, Sharon.
I have just one comment. So.
Would you please introduce yourself?
I'm Sharon Rowell, and I live in the town. But what I wanted to say is, I'm hearing so much talent in this room that for whatever reason haven't had a say in where they thought they should have had. And I would like very much to have this gentleman here. I mean, you know, people I've not met before. Many people have so many good comments and thoughts. I just think you ought to have another round of some sort. I don't know if it's with the planning council or with everyone involved, but I don't want you making this decision from, I just think you need another round of some sort.
Thanks, Sharon.
That's all I have to say.
So the hard part is hearing is Todd keeps saying, well, it doesn't have to happen. Or, you know, just because it's here doesn't mean it's in stone. But when you put something like that out to the townspeople, we think it is.
Right.
And whatever he says isn't really gonna change that because it's a plan. And usually every plan that you try to make in your personal and professional life, you try to follow that plan. Sometimes you do curve left or right, but it is, you know, it's like a budget. So that's the hard thing there, that is for me as a taxpayer to listen.
I know.
Why don't we set up a listening session with a facilitator?
And I would like to see a reduction in salt usage, because it is out of control.
It is out of control.
It is beyond out of control. I'm sorry to,
Right.
but
Well,
it is. I've seen
that's
more
not a
salt
town
than
plan
snow
issue.
fall down.
They were out plowing yesterday.
That's an issue for another board.
Yeah.
Tricia would like to speak.
What's that?
Tricia would like to speak. Is that okay?
Okay. Go ahead. Tricia.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. I've listened through this whole conversation tonight, and I love to hear the comments. I love to hear people talk about what is important to our community, what is not important to our community. And I think everyone is in agreement that we want to get on the same page. This is really important that we are moving forward together as a community. And especially my job as community development, I follow this very closely. I have worked very closely with Todd in my own agendas of like wanting public art included in zoning packages and things that I see that are really should be part of our community. But I want everyone to really understand, like, this is not a document that is set in stone. And that when this town plan is approved, we approve this, our select board approves this town plan, the village trustees will approve it. As this goes through, we start a next town plan for what we want to move forward. So I would suggest everyone that's had comments tonight about this town plan, get on the page of as we move forward. You know what I mean? This is really, really important that everyone's voice is heard. But we're at the end of the timeline here, and not that this couldn't be extended, but I do think that everyone needs to understand, like, this isn't like a end of the road where the stop sign is there, that we will start a new town plan once this is all approved and we're through the state. And, you know, Todd is very welcome, I mean, to anyone who wants to come in and talk about this. This is not, I felt like sometimes people were sort of targeting Todd tonight. This is a planning council. We have a planning council. We have a development review board. It is not a town that does not have these different facets. And I just want to give them a lot of credit for what they've done. And I think you're asking us to go back to a drawing board. Well, let's all look at this moving forward, not backwards. Like, let's get this town plan through, and then let's start thinking about our next one and what you all want to see. So that's my comment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any more comments?
What's the difference between the development review board and planning commission?
two different boards, so.
Well, I get that,
The
but
planning council, for example, writes the town plan, writes the zoning bylaws. The development review board interprets the zoning bylaws, and they handle large development. So when the 136 unit development comes in, it goes to the development review board, and they vote on if the project is approved or not. I'm just a messenger between all the boards. I'm not on the boards. I don't vote on the projects. So Gary's the chair. Gary's been the chair of the DRB for 40 years, maybe longer.
Close, yeah.
Somewhere around there. So they approve development. Planning just writes the zoning, writes the rules. The DRB interprets the rules and approves the projects. I just staff both boards.
Wally, go ahead.
Having sat on a board through one of these already, God bless you people.
it's not an easy job.
There's a few comments up there, I don't know if you want to.
I can't see it.
One of the things I want to mention is that in order for us to have downtown designation, and with the downtown designation comes grants and possibilities, we have to have a town plan.
Right.
So I sit kind of frustrated not knowing what we're going to be missing by continuing to postpone this process.
We have
I
a
know,
town
I know,
Town plans expires.
Expired.
When?
I think it expires this spring.
so, and we're not going to have this one processed until after ours expired. That's what I'm.
Which it does mean
right?
we lose money.
So that's,
And we also won't be able to change the zoning if we keep doing this.
so that's a concern I have, that,
We're about to go into gridlock.
yeah.
You want to read some of those? Yeah.
Sure, yeah, there's just a few comments on the board. I think it's Jess Russell is saying, I agree that this needs more time for public input. Regardless of your thoughts on announcing this, it seems many people are unaware and want to participate. And then Carol, is it Ladler? Lauber says, I agree that the wording at the end of page 23, on page 24 regarding the cost of village sewer plant upgrades be removed. So the same as Laura and Jim, you were saying. There are more direct ways to raise funds to support the village sewer system.
Okay. Where do we want to go?
The one change I'm making, we've heard from a majority of the select board, is to strike Alexander Street. That's what I have so far, to make changes tonight.
Do we want to make any other changes? Here.
What was that,
Striking
Alexander Street, look.
Oh.
That's the one change I have, that the majority of the board agreed to.
How have we agreed about the septic issue, or are we gonna,
Which one?
the page 23 to 24?
The sewers,
The sewer.
sewer.
I agree with him. I wouldn't want anybody else hiding in the village and, hey, I'll have to conserve or whatever, but I'm not asking somebody 10 miles down the road to pay.
You want to sell my house and live, you sell your house and live at my
I
house.
I just don't know what the possibilities are of just leaving the language in there. It doesn't
hurt.
Doesn't mean
Yeah, I
that we
agree.
are going to be doing that.
No, and I think
If it's in the town plan, it might be a possibility of some grant funding.
Correct, that's one of the main points of the town plan.
Yes.
And before you start changing sewer plant language, I would recommend you guys do work with the village trustees on that.
Yeah, because that's going to be a major issue.
This language, these paragraphs, where there were, I think, 5 straight meetings, so 2.5 months, we went over this language word by word at the planning council, with the trustees there, with public there. So this has been very well henpecked already, and I'm hesitant to change it if it's not going to impact anything, as Judy says. At least not without working with the trustees jointly.
It doesn't tie our hands. It doesn't say this is going to
And
happen.
it gives you more options as a select
Yes.
board.
That's what I
Yes.
said at
I'd
the
rather
very
have more
beginning.
options.
Yep.
But he said something about changing the zoning, and that concerns me.
Changing the zoning word, sorry.
So something about,
We're
if
not.
you do this, then it'll affect the changing the zoning? Is that an impression that the zoning regulations want to be changed, or am I not getting what you're saying?
If you don't have a up-to-date town plan, you can't enact zoning changes at some point. So at some point, we'll be unable to respond to landowners and residents' requests to change zoning if we want to. And there's a whole list of things we've already agreed to do if the select board doesn't vote on the town plan. And that happens very soon now. So we've got to move on. I mean, the select board's wanted to move on this for a while for downtown designation. And that's great. We've done our best. If we don't move it to some point, we actually lose the ability to change our own land use laws, which would be very bad. So if you don't like the 136 unit development, I can't change the zoning to not allow something like that to happen again if we don't have a town plan. We're just stuck with more.
So the town plan would address that eventually.
Well, the town plan needs to be in place in order for the zoning to actually deal with that.
I mean, but there's nothing, Kristen Bogdahl, I'm a member of village, town, what both, consider myself both. It's my understanding though that the plan does not seek to change the high density residential
Right.
district at all.
No.
So that's, am I?
It doesn't speak to that kind of detail. When the planning council added HDR to Jersey Heights, I had recommended a requirement that every unit, kind of townhouse style, have an entrance to the ground floor, which wouldn't have allowed a 4 or 5 story building. That didn't get approved, and that's something the planning council could revisit, which would basically make the scale of the development smaller by everyone having a front door that access ground level. But that's a change we won't be able to do if we don't have a town plan. We can't do it at this point. We're so close to the town plan expiring, I can't get zoning through at this point, so we're stuck with the rules as is unless we get the town plan through.
So it's not about like having a piece of land and saying people can have an acre and another one an acre and an acre and not like 2.5 acres or some sort of substantial space between, I mean, in terms of zoning, or maybe I'm off on a different topic.
The town plan is really the foundation for your zoning bylaw. It's the best way I can describe it. So the town plan gives you your foundation. It's what you can talk about. In the zoning, you build your house on top of your foundation. That's enacting your goals and aspirations in your town plan. The town plan doesn't really do much. It's not, it's an aspirational document. It only gets used as a legal document in court or Act 250 hearing for some contested part of a development application. The rubber meets the road in the zoning bylaw, and the town plan is just the directional piece. It's guiding the ship to actually the zoning bylaw as a navigational chart. If that analogy makes sense.
So you did earlier say that up to almost 80% of the town plan in the last one was enacted, so this really is more of a binding document than it's being said just to say, well, we get more wiggle room here or there then.
It's a guide.
Yeah, it's a guide.
It's a guide.
It's almost 80% of the last town plan was done.
Right, implementation chapter.
And so.
Implementation
Okay.
chapter is 3 pages at the end
All
of
right.
this. Pages 65 through 68 or something like that.
Go ahead.
I would expect of 65 and 68, whatever that is, implementation chapter, 60.
So, okay, I know you know it, yeah.
62 through 68, I would expect half of that to get done as a general guess, hopefully a little more.
So just, again, to go back to the point where the one line of reducing the minimum lot size as a guide for the zoning bylaws to be adjusted within areas of the rural residential ag district. I really think that is incongruous. It does not fit with the character of the town. And I think that's something you should seriously consider removing from this as one line. And if that becomes the guide for the new zoning bylaws, then there goes the neighborhood.
That line did come partly from this board. And the intent of that line, from the way I understood it being directed to the planning council, was you're just looking at the close by areas right in proximity around the village. So you're not talking anywhere near where you live. You're talking about right outside Jersey Way or just outside the village limits. You're talking about just the parts of the town that touch the village right there. It's not talking about changing to allowing a 1 acre lot out in Mud City or Sterling Valley or anything like that.
I think it should be defined then. And it should be.
It was more defined earlier, but earlier changes to this plan in the previous public process, in the earlier public process, actually wanted that to be less directive and more up to interpretation instead of binding. So that was how the language is today.
Less binding.
Originally, it said areas immediately adjacent to the village, and it was via public input that was taken out to give the town more flexibility.
Yeah, we were asked to take it out.
Exactly. So the same board created that language and asked me to take out the more specific language. So
I've seen a lot of these statements that have been modified so many times. No, take it in. Oh, you're missing that. Oh, take that out. It's like.
So it sounds to me like we need to go to planning commission meetings and sit in on that.
Yes.
Where we all need to start.
That's
Did we all hear that?
That's where dinner is made. This is just serving up the bill.
Yeah. Kristen, go ahead.
So relatedly, I want to stress that I feel it is important to remove language about expanding the village line to perhaps those areas that you're talking about, making it 20-acre lots. It's mentioned in 2 sections, I noticed, in the implementation plan. So if we're looking at 80% gets enacted, that's pretty good, you know, that we're looking at expanding the village when people are clearly saying that it's not what we want for our town. I live in the village, I'm in the middle of the village, I'm in the medium density, and we have talked about what high density looks like for our neighborhood, and it changes it dramatically. If we're looking at Needles Eye Road and we're looking at spot zoning where there's an apartment building that has multi-units in it, or I don't know, it's medium density right now, right? So like, but it's not medium density because it's not zoned, because it's rural.
It's rural. It's not
It's
zoned,
rural,
yes.
but there's an apartment building on that road. So if you live on Needles Eye Road, and it has more than 2 units right on Needles Eye Road at the corner of Keating's Falls Road and Needles Eye Road, there's an apartment building there.
I live on the corner of Needles Eye Road
Is there
and
not an
Katie's
apartment
Falls Road,
building
and
there?
there is not an apartment building
It's a
there.
single family because it was listed for sale not long ago. Isn't it like a
Oh,
townhouse
that's
or
Ward's
something?
old house up there on the hill.
So-
No, that's not an apartment building, that's a single family home.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, make sure that there's no apartment buildings because they would have standing to rezone your area as a
I've been there all my
multi-family
life.
density. I know, and I'm saying that's the warning that happens for zoning changes when you're trying to expand the village. And I know that this is exhausting for you guys, having to listen to it at this late hour, which is, you know, but it has to be said. So thank you for hearing us out, even though it's exhausting and you might have to hear it multiple times a week because you sit on more than one board. But not everybody attends all the meetings. It is important. So I would like you to consider removing the language about expanding the village while, you know, there are other ways to maintain, like get rid of the property that assesses taxes or, you know, like accrues taxes. There's better ways to do it than just pushing the village line. So please consider it.
I would have to agree with you.
What do folks want to do? What's your?
Well, what are our options?
Can we table this until the
Can I speak?
village trustees?
Yeah, you close the hearing and see what the village trustees do, and you can still meet and talk about it. You just can't take more information if you close the hearing.
Okay, so we can
You're not
just-
voting yet, because the voting takes place at a regular select board meeting.
Right.
So you can be like the planning commission, have 40 of these meetings, at the next regular meetings, have a spot for in every agenda and do that, and vote on it when you're ready.
I think I'd like to have some time to digest.
Yeah.
Can I speak?
And also, I wish stuff was in writing, because I can't contain all this stuff.
I've read a lot of it now. I've been
Okay,
trying to
good.
just-
'Cause I'm trying to find it in the plan and.
Thank you all.
Thanks a lot for coming.
Thanks, Brooke. Have a good night.
So,
Laura is trying to say something. I think she wants to commit to.
Laura,
Who wants to-
can we hear?
Yes.
Go ahead, Laura.
So I just want to be clear that what I heard was that the select board wants to leave the language in because they feel that it will help them get a grant. So basically you're saying that we'll get a grant by agreeing to tax the town people, and that you're passing it, or you're not making a decision, you're going to turn it over to the trustees who are all village people. So I'm unclear as to, is everybody on the select board? It didn't seem like it was clear that, you know, it seemed vague. And I think the voters need to know that, you know, who's for this and who isn't. A vague kind of is, I don't think is good. So you say you're not vote, but I think it would be nice to hear each of the select board members' opinion, whether this should be left in or not.
I know I want to digest it all more. I'm not ready to make a decision one way or the other. I'd like to talk to the trustees. You know I've heard a lot of people say, well, you know, you may not live in the village, but you go to all those businesses that operate in the village. That's one train of thought. If you patronize any of the restaurants, any of the any of the places in the village, whether it's Chuck's Bikes or it's, you know, Power Play or it's Rock Art or it's
Moogs or
any of these places, that, you know, you have skin in the game, so to speak. And that doesn't necessarily mean that's how I feel, but I know that that's what a lot of people say. And that language being left in there allows the select board to still have the flexibility to decide at a later date. So that's just, I don't know how I would vote, so, you know, I think we gotta discuss it more.
The
Yeah, I would,
The Montpelier Select Board, I didn't mean to interrupt, actually, because they do a citywide bond and that helps with the sewer plant upgrades, actually pump septic systems. It just gives you more flexibility. So the select board could pump septic systems as part of this if they wanted to go down that road. I'm not saying to go down that road.
Hey,
but just, it's about not tying
yeah,
it
you
in.
want to come pump mine and take care of my whole system? That's
They may.
great.
You
They
never
can
know.
come pump mine too, Laura.
Yeah, well,
right, I'm with Bob too. I don't fully understand the, all the implications of it, and to me also it doesn't say that town residents would be taxed equally to village residents or
Right.
charged equally. So maybe there's just some sort of like a village use surcharge fee. I don't know. I certainly don't want to offset, you know, the cost of my home sewer or my, you know, because I live in
Right.
the village. I don't want to, that's not what I'm looking to do. But again, I can't vote on that without more information.
Yeah, I think we need to discuss it more, yet again.
One concept, having been involved in a public utility for most of my life, Public Service Board, under their rulings and under state rulings, they have a very simple philosophy: the user pays.
Right.
So if you use the system, you pay for the system. People in the outside of the village, other than coming to a restaurant, don't use the system. The restaurant uses the system for their clientele. They charge 2 cents a meal for their bathroom, if they
That's right.
counting that. See what I'm saying? That's all.
Right, oh, yeah.
The
I
user pays.
I agree with that, absolutely. The town doesn't need to contribute anything to the village on that.
But that's the Public Service Board philosophy that we had to live with in the phone industry, so. That's why.
But it doesn't mean that if we have the town plan, that it's going to happen. What it means is if it's in there, and if there's money available because it's in our town plan, then we can possibly help offset the cost. And that's what I'm looking at.
Gives us the
A
ability.
possibility.
Yeah, that could very well be the case, Judy, and I don't know.
None of
the
us do,
details.
no.
But the thing is, I think what the town residents are concerned about, if it's in the town plan, then it gives you the leeway to go ahead and do it.
Right.
And sometimes things get done that not everybody knows about.
I think
Just like right now, we're paying for the sewer system in Hyde Park. The taxpayers in our town are paying for that.
Now you're paying for the water system.
Well, we're paying
water
for
system.
water in some way,
Yeah.
shape, or form that we're not using.
Let's not go down that road.
So, I know,
That's
I know.
but
That's a
there it
Pandora's
is.
box on its
Yeah,
own.
but
there
I'm
it
just
is.
saying, the philosophy under the Public Service Board in the state of Vermont for a long time has been the user pays.
Right.
We used to do line extensions in the phone company for a mile, never charged the customer. Public Service Board says, time out, you can't do that anymore. You know, you get one pole, and after that, you start paying.
Right.
Because you're creating the expense. So if I go down to your house and drink too much, and I come back to the village of Morristown and use their septic system, the user pays.
There you go. Okay,
So can I
Well,
make a
let-
motion to end this part of the meeting?
that would be great.
I'd like to make a motion to end the part of the
10-year plan
public
discussion.
10-year plan discussion. Thank you.
You closing the hearing?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
I have a motion by Judy. Do I have a second?
I second that.
Second by Jess. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are now out of the 10-year plan discussion and into the regular portion of the select board meeting. Would you like a potty break? Okay, we'll take a short recess for facilities.
What are the other items are on the agenda?
Nothing zoning related or planning related.
So I can go home and have dinner? That's what I'm getting at.
Please.
See this, Eric?
Okay.
That was in my
What are
box.
they? Regular select board? That's all right. Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks, Todd.
No problem. Any
Again.
questions before I disappear? No?
Go for it.
Okay. Gary, you good? Any questions before I disappear?
Can I get a copy of the most current town plan?
Yeah, that's what Sarah gave me one. The minutes of December 20th, 2021.
Well, I do have 3 additions to your agenda.
Oh, yeah, you said there was 2.
Yeah.
Go ahead with those.
So I separated out 2 of them because they're both for the rescue squad.
Yeah.
The first one is appoint volunteer rescue member to part-time paid status.
Do we have something that in our packet? We don't.
I have a motion.
Okay, yep.
The other, change pay status for 1 rescue member. I'll explain that when we get to it.
Okay.
And change the authorized representative for the, I'll give you the acronym, CLFRF, which is the Coronavirus Local Fiscal Recovery Funding, CLFRF.
Okay.
Easy for you to say.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. All right, so now, yeah, approve the minutes of December 20th. Do I have a motion regarding those?
So
Excuse
moved.
me. For the 20th, I just wanted to question, is the way that it's typed on the minutes, how it will be on the article for the half-cent request from the Conservation Commission? Is that typically how it's written, a $ in front of a half and then cent?
Yeah,
That is how it's written?
that's usually how it's written.
Okay, because it was just slightly confusing, we weren't sure if that was how, like the
Yeah,
half cent, the $ half cent,
right,
Yeah, that is.
because we just wanted to make sure it wasn't like
Right.
misconstrued that we're asking for, I don't know,
Yeah.
$12?
Right.
Like it's,
well, maybe in parentheses you put what half cent is, whether it's
I'll take a
32,000.
look at
halves.
it. I took it off another motion, so I'll take a look and see.
Okay,
I don't know, we
Yeah.
wanted to bring it up before it got,
thank you.
thank
You
you.
know, I don't remember it looking like this on warnings before.
And I don't think it's how we had put it on
That's right.
our previous, our like petition
Yeah.
request, not that that was what ended up being
Right.
used, but. I
But
think
also
the
people
same-
need to know what a half cent is, you know, they need to, needs to be
Yeah.
a value, that's why I say put the value in parentheses, you know, like a roughly.
We don't know.
Yeah,
Well,
but,
At town meeting, we don't know what the value of a half cent is because we don't know until the grand list in the.
Right, but you could at least put the previous year, last year's was 32,400, you know what I mean?
Oh,
It
it's
would
all-
ballpark a lot closer than $12.55.
it's
you know?
actually in the town plan differently. I had just seen it,
I
sorry,
think
I'm just
we
remembering
answer
now.
those questions too at the meeting.
Yeah,
Maybe in written words, you know, put it in
numeric values.
And then have it in written language, just so people can see it both ways and make sure they understand.
I like that. Okay, so I had a motion, who seconded that, moving the minutes? Gary seconded. So any further discussion on those? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Minutes are passed.
Sorry, I didn't say aye, but I meant it.
Okay. Well, we had 3 anyway. Now the minutes of December 27th, 2021.
I move to accept them with the addition of the administration and staff. I think we should add Cory Bover and Colby Massey were here.
Oh, yes. Good call. I have a motion by Gary. Did I have a second? Jess, did I have a second?
Yeah, second.
Is there any further discussion? All in favor say aye on those.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm abstaining.
Okay.
Can I abstain? Does that help?
You may.
I mean, but there's only
Yeah,
like
you
two
weren't here,
people
right?
voting.
Right, you weren't here.
Right.
Yeah, that's fine.
Three of us.
3 is
You
fine.
can vote? Okay,
Yeah, the motion is passed.
all right.
Okay. So next, we have community concerns. Do we have community concerns?
Before you go any further,
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to start the new year off with an apology. I'd like
Okay.
to apologize publicly for my comment at the last board meeting about the cost of living increase and referring to our president. I feel it was inappropriate on my part as a select board member, and I apologize. I want to thank you.
Thank you, Gary.
Thanks, Gary. All right, so was that a community concern? Almost.
However you want to take it.
Do we have any community concerns tonight, other than that? We have Tom. Ma'am, could you say your name and...
My name is Jennifer Andrews. I live over on Vanessa Road. And it seems to me that density is becoming overwhelming in Morristown, specifically the village. I have asked people that I know and who have been passing through town the question of what they think of what's happening that's new. And everyone I have spoken to is overwhelmed by the size and number of these apartment buildings. They all recognize the need for housing, but this has all come too fast and too many. I personally find that it's so disappointing that even in the historical district of our village, that there are no architectural details that would actually lend themselves to that idea. I have seen no dedicated green space, and I have been at meetings with Graham, Mink. I have seen no dedicated green space at any of these buildings that would allow for any type of recreation near their home to occur. When you have people who are so densely living together, there must be a dedicated area on the premises to let them play. Otherwise, our police, our fire, and our EMS will become overburdened. There has got to be changes in the way we do business to address this egregious mistake. It needs to be, I believe it needs to be halted, but at least it needs to be slowed way down. That's it.
Thank you.
Jennifer, I really hear you, and I think one of the reasons why so many people are coming out to the town planning meeting is because of that, because of all the building going on, and people are frustrated and upset, and they don't know what to do, and they don't know where to go. And part of it is, some of it is a lack of communication, and you might have heard Chad say there's this three-tiered approach to our government. We have the Planning Commission, which does do all of the zoning, and then you have the DRB that implements the zoning and oversees that. And then you have us, who get the information kind of at the last, not last second, but we're the last piece of the puzzle.
Yes.
Right, but we're the more visible ones.
Lucky you.
But I think
I
that...
I have gone to planning commission meetings. I've never gone to a DRB meeting. I think people are frightened that our little village of Morrisville is changing in a very destructive way.
It's interesting because my son is a town planner. His specialty is in transportation. And so he was just here at Christmas, he's come at Thanksgiving and so on, and I have been picking his brain and asking him what he sees, how things are going, and talking to him, I have a different perspective than I did before, but I think it's something we really need to have more of an educational component to what we're doing, because I didn't understand what was going on.
Unfortunately, it's done now, and people are are angry.
Yes,
And
Yes.
there's no way to undo it.
yes,
And the trust has been broken.
yes.
And so trying to get back to a place where people can take a breath and be willing to trust and work together again is going to be a long, hard road, I'm afraid.
I think if there's some kind of forum for the community to talk, like we had before Arthur's was reconfigured, and we had a big town, not a town meeting, I can't remember what you call it, but a group came in and talked with us as a group, whole, and then many of us broke off into small
And it's like
sections.
a facilitated communication.
Yes,
Mhm.
yes, and I think that needs to happen so people can air their grievances. And then also hear what what information is out there. Why did the development go as it did? And is there anything we can do right now to make some changes that are positive?
And please know that I appreciate all of the incredible amount of time and energy that goes into being an effective select board member and other town commission, as I'm on one too. And it's a thankless job, and you do the best you can. But I think our town and village really need to come together and talk to each other.
Yes, yeah, I agree.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a comment.
I was hoping you would.
The building in the historic district, I assume you're talking about the LHP building over here. And that, when that is completed, the outside of that structure, the permits require them to have the cornices around the corner, around the top of the building, match the ones on Main Street. Also, they're required to have windows that look the same as our downtown. And at the last, when they came back for final approval, they were required to put a business in the bottom floor, the same as the rest of the buildings on Main Street. Nick Donzo's development is down on Bridge Street. I think probably a half to 2/3 of that is dedicated open space. And there's parking spaces within the development set aside for people to go there, walk the trails that are going to be constructed within the development. Grand Minks, 136 unit, there's a public picnic area designed down next to the river with trails going through those areas. Bourne's subdivision outside of town, 8-lot subdivision there. Over half of that, or just half of that, is conserved land, dedicated open space, which with trails going down to the Ryder Road. So there is concessions made by all of these developers, and most of them, we have, to my best of my knowledge, have never had any kickback of providing open space and green spaces. They put up bike racks, they do whatever they're conditioned to do by the DRB, and the DRB goes over these, takes a lot of testimony, and again, I heard Bob telling participant earlier this evening that it's great to have the people come here so you get better ideas of what's going on. And I get chastised from time to time as part of the DRB for allowing too much testimony, for people going off on a tangent when they start giving testimony. And I allow that until it starts getting redundant. Because a lot of people, such as yourself, if you were at a meeting of what you was very late, as the witness closed, if you had better ideas to make his project look better in your eyes or in the town's eyes, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And not everybody likes the same thing. He was made to put porches on on the buildings next to Bridge Street down here. It's also designed, the end building is also designed like the building was up here on the corner of Brooklyn Street and Main Street. Not Brooklyn, but Portland Street and Brooklyn Street. The original building, it's got that round silo on the end of it. That was part of the conditions of his permit to get those buildings done. So I think the boards are looking at, you know, preserving the history of Morrisville and trying to create a good, actually Bridge Street is a new gateway to Morrisville in my opinion, because it comes off the bypass. That was one of the main reasons for constructing, for requiring the silo type to match the older buildings that were in town.
Well, just as someone who's looking around at the apartment buildings that are going up, they just look like big boxes to me, and it's difficult for me to discern any, you know, particular
Well, I don't,
special
you know, yeah, I'm not
attributes that they have.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with you, but also everybody wants to make affordable housing, and I'm not sure what that is. And it changes, in my opinion, it changes every day. Eric and I, we just talked about it. I mean, people have been selling their houses and their land for exorbitant prices. Well, it's going to come back to bite us with a common level appraisal, because we've been under taxing by about 14%. So when the new appraisal comes around, you can expect your taxes to go up probably 14%. But
Oh, that's not good.
No.
well, I mean, it's a double-edged sword, you know. We think we're doing a big stroke of business by selling our house for 3 times the value. Then you end up paying on the other end. But again, to address your concerns, you're more than welcome to come to any DRB meeting that we have there as required, the first and third Thursdays of the month, and or second, fourth, one of them. Next one's the 12th. We're doing all the second. So
And it is,
there's so much to it, and we try to listen to everybody's concerns and have to follow the zoning regulations on top of that. And that's why you're finding all this development, because the town and the planning commission decided that the south end of town was right to change from medium density residential to high density residential, and that's why we're getting what we got. The developers are taking advantage of the rules. They're not breaking any rules. They're doing what they're required to do.
Right.
And as a DRB, the DRB tries to help in that situation and make sure all the buildings are constructed, the best we can. I mean, we have a very diversified board. We have an architect on board, and so, he takes a look at a lot of those, and so
and
that helps.
It is good to go along with Gary said, like any of these buildings in the historic district, they have to have like the facade, the original facade, and cornices and windows and everything, like Power Play Sports Building, when that was renovated, the post office building, the Arthur's building, even Bourne's office building's a brick building. That had to be done a certain way so it was matched the character of the town. And I know it seems like a lot of people say, well, these are all just boxes. They don't look like they belong here, But like that building he's talking about on Hutchinson Street, the Memorial Housing Partnership building, that is when it's going to be done. It's going to look a lot different than a big plywood box. And because I remember,
Because it's way bigger than the.
it's taller than everything up there. I know.
It is way out of place, very out of character.
Right.
And I think of, when you follow the green line in Morrisville to do the history walk, there's the mustard colored house that is now green, that has all those apartment buildings behind it.
Offices.
Pardon?
That's Grimnick's offices.
Those are just big boxes. And they're by the green line walk, It's not attractive to see all that stuff in the historic district. So,
Right.
thank you for listening.
I agree with you, Jennifer. I think we're maybe having a difference of value, or like maybe what Gary's saying, like beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And I really commend the DRB for requiring certain aesthetic requirements for these developments. I would like to understand more around how regularly those requirements are instituted, or, you know, like is it on a case-by-case basis, or is it across the board? Is it based on whether a building is an historical renovation, or if it's a new building, or where it is in the village? I think it would go a very long way if there was a facilitated communication between people in town and key members of the boards to talk about green spaces and setbacks and sight lines. Just talk about how we're going to do this high-density development moving forward in a way that preserves the character of our downtown. Because I think, like you said, like the things that you mentioned, I think are like really great examples of how we can do both. And I do, but I also, and I think like the townhouses behind on Foundry Street are pretty tasteful, you know? Like I think those like do add, those do, in my eyes, look like nice places to live, you know? And I hear what you're saying too, there's a push and pull between affordable housing and beautiful aesthetics, but I don't understand myself if there's just a few, like some zoning changes or requirements that we could look at going forward around setbacks and green spaces and you know, certain aesthetics that we deem are like would keep the character of our town a little more.
Jessica, thank you for saying that in a much nicer way.
Oh, I think I probably just paraphrase what you said.
Well, I mean, like, again, we try to adhere to the zoning regulations. I mean, those, the setbacks and the green spaces, all that stuff is all set by the planning commission.
Right.
We just follow the rules.
Well, but
But like every development required to have a street tree every 50 feet or 60 feet on center. Sidewalks, Bridge Street area, there's no setback. The sidewalk is the setback.
yeah, that's not, to me, that's like, where you said Bridge Street is now the
Gateway.
The gateway to Morrisville. That's the thing that really, I think, sets it apart, is that there's no setback. And I think when you look down that street, you start to feel like, I live in New York City, you know, you start to feel like
And
this.
that's what you have to think about. When I was
Yeah.
talking to my son about this, that's what you think about. If you, let's go look at Boston and the brownstones.
Yeah.
They're built right up to the sidewalk. And so there are places for those type of buildings, and there's places for buildings that have more of a yard around them.
But a brownstone has a beautiful stoop to hang out on. I mean, that is the public space, right? Like, that is the public space of that.
But we debate this for the rest of the night. I think we should just keep moving on right now.
I know Tom had a,
How did the planning board people get on that board?
They volunteer to.
if there's a vacancy, it's advertised, and then you can,
And that's another problem.
Who chooses them to go on the
the
board?
DRB.
They recommend them.
They
to the
recommend them to
select-
us, and we approve them.
The planning
So,
council.
so the people on the planning board, they're your responsibility because you put them there.
That's true.
Yeah, but they make
But they
all the
make-
decisions. We don't tell them what to
Who you put
do.
on there.
We don't tell them what to do. We vote people in the Congress too. We don't tell them exactly what to do.
We very rarely go against what they decide
I
and
understand that.
recommend us.
No, be careful.
So-
It has happened though. A good example of that is the zoning density change that happened up on Elmore Street,
Yeah.
where it was medium density, and all the folks that lived there came and said, we want it reduced to light density. And it was overwhelming, so we did it. And in that section there, because they were worried about the build out of, you know, the developers take a look at the half-acre lots and they say, oh, we could put 3 buildings up here, you know? That started to happen, so we made changes.
Right,
So-
that's what I understand from speaking with Todd earlier, is that we can look at this town plan and we can propose change in zoning on the select board. Is
Yeah.
that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so it's not totally out of our purview.
No, we
Right.
can go to those meetings too, and we can,
Well, no, I'm saying as members of the select board, we can make those changes as well. It's not just the DRB. and the
no, we can,
Planning Commission makes those changes.
yeah.
We can be at the meetings and suggest, just like anybody else can.
Yeah.
But we can't,
We can suggest that.
and if it comes to us and we can vote no,
Yeah.
if we don't like it, but.
Right. Or if we're outvoted.
Yeah.
I've gone to several of those meetings, planning commission meetings, where mine wasn't the best idea apparently, because it didn't go through, so. It's all part of the democratic process. But thank you for your input.
Thank you for your hard work.
Yeah, I'll hold off my concerns till some other meeting.
Hey, you haven't heard any ATVs lately, have you, Tom?
I have not, but it's gonna be his problem.
I was gonna say Jason will hear.
Come this spring, when they come down there again, I'll be talking again, yeah. If they're coming down.
Look at me bringing up that three-letter word.
Thanks, Bob.
See, it was you, I did not bring it
I
up.
know. But I have to tell you, every time I see you, I think of that, you know?
Well, good.
Sorry about that.
That's a good thing.
Okay. All right, is there any other community concerns? Hearing none, we'll move to approve the warrants.
Do you want to
Well,
pick up the 3 items, or do you want to?
Well, yeah, we can do that.
Let's do it.
I'm just,
Go ahead, we'll
Eric, you get all dressed up and do it.
appoint the member.
yeah, so the first one is Jason Tallman. I think Bill is on. Bill Mace is on tonight.
Hi, can you hear me?
Hey, Bill.
Hi, Bob. Hi, everybody. Sorry for not being there in person. So with Colby coming on full-time from our part-time staff that left us with a part-time vacancy, we had previously interviewed Jason Tallman for that slot when we last had a part-time opening. We opened it up to our volunteer members. Jason was the only one who applied. And we're very happy. We would be very happy to have Jason join us as a part-time member of the squad. He's been a longtime volunteer and very deserving of coming on and joining our career staff.
Okay.
So there's a motion here. Send it on to Gary.
I just got the right one down.
I move to offer the position of part-time EMS to Jason Tallman at $16.57 per hour. This position is regularly scheduled to work up to 29 hours per week.
I have a motion by Gary. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Judy. Is there any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is passed. Now how about the change paid status one?
Change pay status is reference to Peter Fitz. Take it away, Bill.
Thank you. Peter Fitz has been a part-time member of our career staff for going on a couple of years this time around. Peter has been working as a provisional paramedic under a provisional certification from National Registry and from the state of Vermont. He's used that time to pass his National Registry practical exams, and he has spent the last year in preceptorship with myself and with Chris Clement. This past week, Peter was released by Liam Gannon, our district medical advisor, for to come off of provisional status and to have full clinical practice within the EMS district. So Peter is now available to us as a fully certified, no longer a provisional paramedic, and we need to increase his hourly rate to reflect that.
Okay, you have a motion for that?
I move to increase Peter Fitz's hourly rate of pay to $19.53 per hour to reflect his new paramedic level certification.
I have a motion by Gary. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Judy. Is there any further discussion on this? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is passed. Next, the CLFRS.
Yes, so those are ARPA funds. It's another acronym. So what has come to our attention is we assign different roles within the ARPA funding. You were assigned, Bob, as the authorized representative.
Woohoo, I knew that.
Yeah, well, almost bought you a baseball hat, but we didn't quite, we stopped there. It was
Yeah.
too expensive. So the authorized representative has to be present in order to upload the reports required through the ARPA program.
Oh, you're lucky.
I had to create an account and Tina, that was your
Yeah,
password.
so that has become problematic because it's just availability and when the reports due, they're due. So what we're suggesting is that we change for the authorized representative from you to me,
Okay.
since I'm here.
No, aren't you already something anyway? You're one of the other,
Yeah, now I have
The gatekeeper
two
or the key
hats,
master?
But I'm not buying those hats either, but I'm just, yes, that's some sort of,
okay.
yeah. But
I'm all for that.
So this, this is simply changing you, officially changing you from the authorized representative to me being that, and it's a reporting piece only. There's no other implication here, just that I get to log in and make the change. So
That's fine with
Tina
me.
can upload the reports.
Are you ready to relinquish your?
Oh, yes, I am. I only did
Give up
one
all that extra
thing.
pay?
I only created an account and a password, then I gave it to Tina anyway.
Okay, I move that we change the town's authorized representative for coronavirus local fiscal recovery funding from Bob Beeman to Eric Dodge, town administrator.
I have a motion by Gary, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Judy. Is there any further discussion on this? All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion is passed, but I abstained from the vote. All right, is that it?
That's it.
Okay, approve the warrants. Do I have a motion to approve the warrants?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Gary. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? The warrants are passed. Next, TA report.
Just keep it simple. Through the holiday season, the staff here had a little bit of a slowing of work requests from the public, which was nice to give them a chance to breathe and spend some time with their families. They took advantage of that and have come back with big smiles on their faces and successful and safe holiday season. So we're ready to go for 2022.
Sounds good.
That's it.
That's all you got?
That's all.
Any questions for Eric? Thanks, Eric. Select board concerns. Gary?
No, no concerns, I guess.
Okay.
I have
Judy?
none.
Jess?
I just want to understand the process that we'll use to decide on the town plan language. Where are we going from here?
I think we have to decide if we're going to strike any of those other things.
Yeah.
There's three more, I think. There's three that we're talking, one that Kristen was talking about, and there's a couple other ones.
Sewer.
The
Sewer.
And the Alexander Lane.
There you go.
And then.
Well, Alexander one we did.
We
We
did.
removed that language.
There was
But there was one more.
And then
The fellow gave you that printout.
The
Yes.
manufactured,
Oh, the highway lane.
Yes.
The passing lane.
Right. So we need to discuss
I
that.
thought there was something else
and there was
about the
something around the lot size.
acreage, yeah.
The lot,
And acreage.
Yeah.
changing the lot
And
size.
he had written something, given
Yeah.
to you.
Yeah.
Do you have that?
I took a photo of it with my phone and then I snapped it back.
If he gave it to
That's
me.
that, yeah,
Is it this one?
yeah.
Yeah. So we have it. So I guess you're right. We need to
Can
decide.
that,
We
can
need
that
to
be
talk
sent out
about
to
it.
us?
It can be.
Yeah, thank you.
What came out of the meeting, and I'm not sure if anybody or everybody's completely aware of it, but, so the 80,000 square foot represents 2 acres.
Right.
40,000 represents 1 acre. So the town plan is speaking to reducing the requirement from a 2 acre zoning requirement to a 1 acre zoning requirement in those affected areas. So that's, in case folks didn't understand that.
I did.
Hearing this.
And
Yeah,
where
I
are the
did.
affected areas?
Just the abutting the village.
Oh, so around the,
The blue line is the village line.
Yeah.
Right.
does the village
Will you
line,
show, come show, you want to show us?
does the village line follow streets?
No.
No,
No, it doesn't.
no,
It does,
It does follow lot lines.
Harold Street, it does.
yeah,
So Harold,
Yeah, I don't, that blue line is not the village line.
The blue line is the village.
Blue line is the sewer service area, I
right,
believe.
yeah.
right.
Because the village line comes, comes across here, goes right down the center of Harold Street.
It should be denoted on that key.
Yeah, the blue line here, it says sewer service.
Yeah, sewer service
management
management area.
Yeah.
Yeah, the village line comes down the center, it comes across.
That legend doesn't show the village
It
line.
doesn't, comes across here.
The one on mine does. I'm pulling it up.
Yeah, I've got one too, it does.
Goes right straight across. No, I was trying to think,
So Colonial Knolls isn't in the village?
Colonial Manor is not in the village, no. My house is the last one in the village.
Okay.
So, the budding the village with what type of, with what,
They just want to change,
From 2 acre to
Well,
1 acre.
but I understand they want to change from 2 acre zoning to 1 acre zoning. And I think what brought most of it on was, Jersey Way, the village line is right.
Gee, it would be great to have a big map like that. to
Yeah.
s-
Yeah,
locate it.
I thought we had one.
It would.
I thought there was another one over here, but.
That's the village zoning map.
So you're
What
gonna
about,
you're gonna keep that in there,
we haven't
2 acre
decided.
down to 1 acre?
We haven't decided,
Okay.
No.
but I think it would be good, like Jess says, to have those 3 things that we haven't decided on yet.
What I'll have Todd do is.
Talk to Todd about it.
Yeah, so the 10-year town planning, the guiding document, the planning council would have to suggest the change in a specified area for the
Right.
2 acres down to 1 acre,
Right.
which would then come to you annually when Todd presents the proposed zoning changes.
Right.
And then the board would review those changes and decide which ones you agreed with and didn't agree with.
Right.
So it offers you an opportunity, that's all I'm saying. It gives you a little more flexibility as far as he was talking about, as housing requirements expand for the village, that there would be a proposal coming from the planning council up through the process.
so it would be on a case-by-case basis, you mean?
There would be a proposed zoning area, and I can ask Todd if there are any areas that are already talked about, because some of them are restricted by geography, so,
Well,
you know,
I
if
think
they're.
one of the ones that was talked about is, across from Rock Art Brewery, that field there.
Yes,
Okay.
Okay.
that's right.
That-
Yeah,
'cause
okay.
The
that-
Chung,
that's the
Betty
village-
Chung property.
Yeah, and change that because Belange's property is already built out to 2 acre zoning,
Mhm.
and they were talking about changing, this area here to 1 acre zoning. Because this is like 1/4 acre, go to 1 acre, and then this would be 2 acre.
Okay.
Mhm. So we need to talk to
Again,
Todd
it's-
about it.
Being in the town plan, nothing in the town plan is set in stone that has to be completed by you folks. It's simply a consideration, leave some ideas. Planning council is a visionary council. They look at the long-term growth and potential needs of the village and the town. So some of these things, there's more to it than sometimes comes out in a meeting. I don't know, on the sewer issue, one of the issues that didn't come out, the thing that didn't come out was the fact that, well, and I live in the town as well. I'm not on the village sewer. However, my property taxes are kept lower by the influx of growth on the commercial and retail district side of the town
Right.
that are on that sewer district. So while I want growth, responsible growth in those areas that would add users, that would increase the tax base in the grand list in town, I understand that that's to my advantage as a homeowner in the town. Even though I'm not a user of the village system, my property taxes and the grand list growth, that helps. So there are some advantages to town taxpayers that are not in the system to having the village water, village septic system in place and expand it as we did out on Harold Street. We took in Butternut Mountain Farms.
And Concept too.
That concept too. They had required open space there for a secondary septic zone.
Exactly.
And when that sewer line was extended out Harold Street, and it ends right at the Industrial Park Drive on Harold Street,
Yeah, and then it goes up.
then it goes into the industrial park.
Yeah.
Butternut Mountain Farms was able to grow their factory and their warehousing on that property substantially, which
Yeah, the concept is good too.
substantially increased the grand list value.
Well, we put up solar array, that was right over our leach
Over
fields.
the leach field.
Yeah.
So, and then Chris on the other end of the properties that are on, that front on 15, you know, and Turtleford too. All those
So
properties.
So there are pluses and minuses. There are definitely pluses and minuses, and all those come into play.
Yeah.
So,
I
It's
think
not
it's-
as simple as
I
what
think as
people
long
think.
as what's in the town plan isn't hamstringing us, there are options.
It's a guide.
That we can say yay or nay to.
There are, and there are so many processes built into town government for review and review and review.
Right.
So that those measures have been taken into account as far as planning council develops ideas and they look at zoning as a living document, our zoning bylaw is a living document, because the needs of the community and its growth change, so they don't ever stay the same. So all of those things are guiding things, but the select board is the final approving authority. Planning council develops an idea, and then once that is approved by you, then the DRB enforces those zoning bylaws. So there is a tremendous amount built into law that governs how these things come up through and get reach final approval, and at any step in there, people can raise their voice.
Well, that's why I get frustrated, because I think so many people put so much weight on that, what it says in that town plan, and it should be the town vision or something like that, the town guidance, not the town plan. Everyone thinks it's gotta be in there if you're gonna do it, and that's it. You know how many times I've heard that?
Also, I mean, it is, that's what's confusing about it, is because it's a town plan and the.
Right, and that's it. You gotta do it.
Well, and then there's an implementation plan, so it is.
But it isn't. I know.
But Todd said 80% of the last town plan was implemented, so.
But we
I
still
found
have.
that contradictory. I'm not saying
It
that.
is.
I'm not saying that what you're saying is incorrect, I see an inherent contradiction here that isn't really.
But because it's written there doesn't mean that it's.
You
going
gotta
to-
do it.
You gotta do it.
Right, but I do understand the concern of many people that if it is written there, there's a good chance that it will happen.
You're right on the money.
Right,
You're right on.
so that's where I share some concerns, or I am amenable to looking a little farther into them. I don't want to prolong this process any more than it needs to be, really, I don't, but,
I look at it as a special educator writing an IEP.
Yeah.
And we write the IEPs, we have goals and objectives, this is what we'd like to do. But a lot of times, we don't get there. Things get in the way, the goals and objectives didn't work, and so we have to find another route.
Yeah.
And that's why I look at this as a guideline for us to look at, and is it advantageous 3 years down the road? Should we be doing this? And we go, this isn't in our best interest.
Right.
So it's a path for us, but it's not set in stone. That's how I
The
look at
truck
it.
lanes trafficability, Todd, as the author of the planning council, looks at this from the elevation of 100,000 feet down. So they don't see the town lines. What they see is, we do have a portion of our population here that commutes to Chittenden County for higher rates of pay and better business and better jobs that sometimes are available in the larger metropolitan areas. We are about a 1 hour commute from anywhere in the Burlington area. That has become accepted. People don't mind driving an hour, especially when they can come up here, and the housing is more affordable here than Chittenden County, and it's more rural and more residential, and they enjoy it here. The more you increase your commute time through traffic slowing, then you make us less of an option for those folks to look at. They're going to look closer to the interstate and not as close to us. So this is when they're looking at these things, they're taking all of this into, factoring all this into what is best for our growth here in Morrisville and what impacts it. So it doesn't stop at the town lines. It does have broader reaches, but hey, you know, it's a document that you folks have to approve. So that's the great part about it. There's lots of different hands in this already.
That's not a great paragraph. That's a bad paragraph.
So I wasn't intending to get back, I wasn't intending to get back into the discussion of all the points. I was just wondering if when we do approve it, like, and is there any further discussion in the next meeting?
We need to talk about it with Todd before.
Yeah. Okay.
That's what we need to do.
I think we have to make a decision, we have to make a decision on those items, those 3 or 4 items that were brought forward.
Right.
Yeah.
Whether, I think, it seems to me from what Todd said, if we remove them, it's.
You don't have to.
You don't have to go through the whole process.
Right.
If
If
it's
we add
considered-
these
If you add
things,
something, you
then we have to
If
go
it's
back.
considered a significant change.
Yeah.
Right.
And removing something does not consider something a significant change.
And then are you gonna have a meeting where people, or it's like an informational
Right.
meeting, except, you know,
Well,
people that, because there's many times, and I understand you have this advertise these meetings, but obviously people aren't getting it.
No, they don't.
So, I mean.
But they don't know where to look to get it.
Facebook and every place else, and then if they don't, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now,
I think I can show you where the village line is, because in the town plan, it is marked on the key.
Okay.
Okay.
It would be easier to see there if you want me to do it.
Yeah.
But, so it does follow the colored in spacing green, which is the
The
low
green there.
density residential 2 and 1. And then goes along the sewer line from Randolph Road to Beacon Hill, across Beacon Hill, up, and then goes to the outside, yeah, across there, following,
This,
yeah, up there. And then
I
to
disagree.
continuing,
The village line
well, I'm looking at it.
is, well, yeah, it makes, yeah.
And then it goes-
And that'd be the 30 way.
And then it goes, it does not then follow the sewer line north. Continue to the left,
It goes by
to the
Mac Miller.
north, east, or northwest. Not quite to Mac Miller, it goes to the Katie's Falls Road, up.
Oh, over here.
Yep, and then
Yeah.
all the way up to the low density residential
Yeah.
4. And then it follows that, the Needles Eye Road back round to Route 15, but like more down. You can kind of see it here on
Yeah.
the channel. It's easy.
right.
But then it goes down through the commercial zone
Down through
to Harold Street, like you said,
Yeah.
like not all the way on the rail
Down
trail,
over here somewhere.
Yeah.
but it's like over there. But Wilkins Street is included in the, yeah.
And it comes down across here.
Yeah, and then it just goes right across.
So currently it's considered rural,
We're residential.
rural residential, and it would be increased to low density.
Okay. Well, we'll figure that stuff out. Talk to Todd. We take those 3 items and give them to Todd and say, look, what's the significance of these items? Then give it to us separately and we can say what we think. Okay?
Right, I think
I do agree with not extending the village line.
Yeah.
I think there's, and somebody said it earlier tonight, the best way would be for the town, for the village to sell those lots or give them to the town.
Yeah, Ron said
With
that.
and lease back the.
I'm fine with that too.
Because I don't think we ought to lose Bugby Springs because that's valuable.
It's very valuable. We can start bottling water and selling it.
And I think if
Good.
the whole point of the low density, or sorry, the high density housing is that we will concentrate the development in the downtown. I don't think we need to sprawl the downtown yet, you know, I think that's something we need to do.
So anyway, there's 3 of us, we could say that. I don't know if you guys. But anyways, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Yeah.
In a second, yeah. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We're now adjourned.